What's up, everybody? It's Cullahcast number 13. And we got Michael Castle, also known as Pretty Beggar,
What's up, y'all?
in the studio. And yeah, everything looks good. What's up, dude?
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being had.
You're in the double digits now for podcast, man. You're
Double
an old
digits.
vet by this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a gig like a couple months ago. This is kind of a return back to it. Took about like 2 or 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
I had a gig and someone asked me, it was like in the round. So people ask questions and stuff.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, those are really fun.
Yeah.
And someone said, so like how, and they
You
started
do that
asking,
with Amplified Artists?
yeah, it was that
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
That's
And
so cool.
yeah, those people are great. They got an awesome show on Thursday, actually.
Yeah.
Their second year anniversary show at Saloon on Calhoun.
Damn.
Great lineup.
I have to go.
Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
And someone was like asking me about my podcast and stuff, and I was approached by people in the scene, in my neighborhood and stuff about and I was like, oh hey, like they were like, I've seen you before, or I've seen you on social media. Are you that podcast guy? I'm like, am I a podcast guy now? Like I've only done this is number 13.
You can be it all.
Yeah.
That's the point too.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I was like,
It's like get a different kind of media out there so people
Right.
can pick up on it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being on lucky number 13.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I dig it. I'm not superstitious or nothing, so
But Black Cat's
could be
got
lucky,
your
could
trail.
be unlucky. I don't know. Don't matter.
Baker's dozen. That's pretty lucky,
That's
right?
pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. What is it? 13 is
Baker's
unlucky if it's
If it's on a
if
Friday,
it's
I
on a
don't
Friday,
know.
but if it's baked goods, it's good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So it could go either way.
I'm
Basically, it's all bullshit.
I'm gonna assume it's more. This is more of a Baker's dozen situation.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, I got a bunch of things that we could talk about, but for people who don't know you, you are an engineer turned musician. Well, I know you've always been a creative, but that's one of the first conversations I had with you. One of the things we connected about.
Yeah, because you're a computer science background. Right?
Yeah, and you got the healthcare background and engineering, right? Like,
Yeah, so being in music, you have to clarify for people a lot. Because
Yeah.
as soon as you say you're an
Engineer.
engineer, they think you work in a studio.
Right, you're an
doing
audio
records
engineer.
for people. Yeah. Yeah, but no, I used to work on medical devices, man.
Devices, yeah.
Yeah, so I used to do research for pacemakers and then like catheters for like pacemaker implants.
Yeah.
And all sorts of other things, and like X-ray machines for GE. But there's a very short lifespan on that. It's just when you don't connect with something, or you're not challenged by it, it's like boredom has this spiral effect to just wear you out mentally. So
I don't even think it's boredom too. It's like it's not even boredom. You're actively being suppressed. You know what I mean? It's not like you're there being like, oh, I wish I could do something. It's like you're in a situation you don't even want to be in.
yeah,
You know what I mean? You're actively.
yeah, dude. The last job I had, whenever I tried to exercise some independent creativity, so I would get some ideas and I try to work on these things, and I program up these like automated testers for these X-ray machines, and they're like, hey, man, just fall in line, like just do these tests and get them done as quickly as possible. So it was like, anytime I found something to be enthusiastic about, like you said, it was actively suppressed, and it would just take all the.
I think that's how the system works, right? I mean, it's kind of built like that.
It's built on efficiency
Yeah.
and order, structure.
It's the Industrial Revolution mindset,
Yeah.
Fall in line. Just you're just a cog in the wheel. You're supposed to get your job done. Answer to the authority.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting warm in here, right? I just
Yeah, man.
getting warm. I like put my hands on this table and But yeah, so that's one thing I connect you with right away because I had that engineering background, and I still do some web development with my own website and some projects that I'm working on stuff. It's fun, right? I love. I'm really
Yeah,
grateful.
but independent contracting is a whole nother world.
Right.
Much more fun.
I'm really grateful for that engineering background, though.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we chatted about was the fact that there's not too many scientists / engineers turning musicians around. Like a lot of people that are successful in music, it's like well, a lot of them, their family or like their parents were musicians or artists or something. And they had connections and they get in real easy and things. But I think there's a big advantage to having an engineering background.
Yeah.
No, understanding that critical thought process, understanding first principles analysis,
Problem solving mentality.
Yeah, just that,
Yeah.
just knowing how to have. Okay, here's all these assumptions and problems. How are we going to come up with these sets of solutions?
Yeah.
And I think you can apply that to a creative thing. People always do people ask you that, like, how do you balance the two? Like, where does that work? How can you be a nerd and a creative at the same time? You ever
Yeah.
get that with people?
Yeah. So one thing I always go back to is, like I said, the problem solving mentality. So like when I started doing music, I was in my mid 20s and I just needed an outlet from like the education that I had done and the jobs that I was doing in engineering. I just needed like a new direction to stabilize my mental state. And so the fact that I didn't know how to sing, barely knew how to play guitar, didn't know any piano, no nothing, had never written a song, that my whole songwriting approach is just improvisational. So I just sit down and mess around. Can you swear in this?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't gotten flagged yet, so
Okay, cool.
swear as
So
much as you want.
yeah, so I would just have to sort of stab in the dark with a guitar that I barely knew how to play and like a few chords, and then eventually you hear things that are cool and you start this problem solving venture of like, how do you put this song together? What's good, what's not? How do I set up these transitions to make the song kind of flow and sound good? So it's like starting off with just a couple tools and figuring out how to sort of problem solve and put this song together as you go through, and sort of reacting to each new challenge and working through that. And that's the whole scientific method, is
the
just
reactive.
try something with an assumption.
Right.
So like, I'm going to try this melody because I assume it will sound good over these chords. And then if it works, you learn from that and you build on it. Or if it doesn't, you can sort of regroup. So it's scientific method.
The last step
Yeah.
is do it again.
Yeah.
Start it all over again.
So it's the same kind of mentality. It's just like different tools and
That's
different
interesting.
brain muscles.
They say that about reactive, because that's how I feel. That's how I've been trying to like lately. I've been describing. People always ask me about my writing process, and that's one of the best ways I've found to describe it. Is that it's all just about coming up with something cool and then reacting to it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's a cool sound. Let me react, and then you react to the sound. The sound shapes you, and then it's this like, it's this cyclical process. And once you get in that flow state of just being able to understand how to react without being in your own way, that's the creative mind. And so it's like, I think that that engineering background is really important. I mean, personally, I think most, if not all people should study that to a degree, especially creatives. Like, that's only going to enhance those types of mindsets, to be in the problem solving mindset.
Yeah.
I hear that from so many people too, about they get frustrated with musicians, or how, they're always, so discombobulated, or there's that romantic idea of a musician or an artist who's just like, they don't have their shit figured out, and, they're just like flying at the whim, and they're, they're kooky and spontaneous,
free-spirited,
and it's like, oh, they're just artists, but for sustainability of your career and for all this stuff, like, I think about someone like Stephen King,
Sure.
or these great artists, like all the great composers, these are meticulous motherfuckers, man. Like, they have systems in place to do it, whether or not it's, they have these rigorous systems. So and maybe that's it, like, for the scientific method is a system that, we can implement in a practical sense.
And if you're used to sort of putting the work in to set up systems in order to do something creative or productive, that's a great way to be. Because like for this podcast,
right,
you have a system, it's set up. Basically a system, all it ever is removing a bunch of work and decisions that you would have to make every time
Right.
you're trying to do something. So if you're used
Yeah.
to working in that environment or setting up systems to make yourself more efficient, especially when you're DIY, like you and I, that you can get a lot more done
Yeah.
just on your own and retain some of that creative control and sort of a thing, as opposed to having to rely on, people that just go straight for a record label and then kind of get
Right.
caught up in all of it.
Yeah, that's another good point about one of the things I feel that I connected with you about in terms of being like our approaches to music is the DIY sense
Yeah.
of things, and I think there's a lot more power in that than people give it credit. Like, I think it's growing. I think people are like, some people really understand it, but like
Yeah.
you said, there's still these myths about, oh, you're just gonna get discovered. I'm just gonna, if you just play enough shows, you're gonna get discovered, and someone's gonna be there. You never know who's in the audience.
Which there's some truth
It's,
to.
yeah, that it
It's
can
like
happen.
it's all about just hard work.
Exactly.
And number of opportunities.
You should
But
definitely play as many shows as you can.
yeah.
But but there has to be strategy too. Like, there has to.
Yeah.
It's not just like, I'm gonna play the same. I'm gonna play all the shows in the world in the same 3 venues for 5 years straight.
Yeah.
You will. I'm sure there'll be people who see you and stuff, and I'm sure there's, it's not bad to play, but in terms of like strategy and resources, like you were saying about
Yeah.
doing it yourself, and that's what DIY is. Do it yourself is so much cheaper. It's so much cheaper, and like you said, you have creative
So true.
control. I was
Yeah.
talking to your buddies, Mountains on the Moon. We had a great
Yeah.
jam and toast last
Shout out
Friday,
to Mountains on the Moon.
Yeah,
Love those guys.
and they were talking to me about. We were talking a little bit about that. They're like, "How are you listening to? Like, do you really have that many albums?" I was like, "Yeah," and I'm like, "How?" I'm like, people come and they assume, like, some, because it's that model. They like, if people don't have a DIY understanding, they're just like, how can you do that? Like, you have all these songs, you go to the studio, you record these things. Like, no, that's not how. I come up with it, and my recording is my writing, and my writing is my recording. And,
Yeah.
and
That's how I do it too.
and it's just me, most 9 times out of 10, probably 95 times out of 100, that I'm the one that's making that decision. I'm the one playing that instrument. I'm the one making those decisions in the writing, in the mixing process.
Yeah.
And because you can do that, you can create totally without restriction, other than your own restriction. Like, restrictions, and you're your own restriction. Whereas last year I had some mixing engineers and some other things, and I've tried that before, working with a lot of different things, and performing live with a band is a perfect example of that. So many people you have to keep in the loop, and you have to be constantly in contact with everyone. You have to make sure everyone knows what's going on, and you have to coordinate this and this and this and this. And there's just so much more to handle. And when you DIY, it's like all of that is not burdened, and you can actually kind of enjoy things. Like, I'm going on a little more, like, primarily DIY, a little tour next month, and a lot of house shows, a lot of things from DoDIY.org.
Yep.
And I just like, it's a relief to me when it's like, oh, a house show, like, I can do whatever I want, like, especially if it's my first little thing and it's in a town. Like, I get to come and I'm talking to one person, and it's, and there's no like, oh, this is your person of contact, and this is where you need to park, and this is, and maybe people will come. You gotta promote it, and there's a million, there's, who knows what kind of venue it's gonna be, or who's the sound guy, or all these different, there's, or there's gonna be a bunch of drunks there, or people aren't gonna care, or no one's gonna show up, or I mean, you have much more experience with the touring, and we can get into that, because I've got some questions about that. But
sure.
But to me, I've heard that it's like, it's much better to play at a house in front of 5 people that care than to play in a bar in front of 20 people who are
just trying to have dinner.
Yeah.
Background music.
Just trying to have dinner, man. Go to those places where it's
They
like,
won't
I didn't know
retain
music
any
was
of-
gonna be here. What the fuck? And then then they all leave, and it's just like,
You got to play a kick-ass
right
song to turn up some ears from.
Yeah, you mentioned something
their
about a
dinner with
bachelorette
their
party
family.
at Jam and Toast.
Oh yeah, playing for bachelorette parties, man. Yeah, every once in a while you get
Play Wonderwall.
Yeah, you go through a rural town and there's some, like the last one I did, it was this bachelor party that they got dropped off by a party bus, so they were already 3 sheets like coming
Oh my
in,
God.
and yeah, when they want to hear their favorite song and you're pretty beggar, so you don't play any covers, you
I
gotta
hear you, man.
play the hippest, funnest songs you know, and really turn them out to turn that crowd around,
Man,
make them have a good time.
Yeah, I'd just play. The only cover I know is All Star. I just play that.
Yeah.
They're like that, and they'd be like, "Oh, he does All Star. Let's play another one." Like, that's the only one I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were an engineer and you were doing that, and you're from
Minnesota.
Minneapolis, right? Minneapolis.
Yeah, northern Minnesota, but I
Duluth.
spent
is
my
that?
college time in Minneapolis.
You from
so
Duluth?
yeah.
Is that? It's a beautiful town.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
But it's freezing right now.
Yeah, dude, I don't like going back in the winter.
It's cold right now here, man. I can only imagine. That place is like, isn't it? So do you like hockey?
I played a little bit growing up, and then I had a little bit of fun watching it, but I don't
Yeah.
pay much attention to sports
Right.
really anymore.
But is there a special place in your heart for hockey, at least compared to some other things?
kind
no?
of. I noticed that, like,
I just know Duluth is like hockey capital of the world,
yeah. So when you're growing up,
or at least of America.
it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And honestly, the real stars of like high school hockey in Minnesota, they're basically celebrities,
Yeah.
and they get known like nationwide.
Because they can go pro.
Yeah,
They're just like, because that's how competitive is there, right?
yeah. It's like football in Texas,
Yeah,
or
exactly.
these basketball kids that the NBA knows about them when they're like 16, 17.
Right.
You know, that's the hub. That's the center point.
So you were there, but then you went to school for engineering in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
U of M.
U of M. Yeah, so 5 years there. That's how I met Tim, who was my throughway to come out here to Milwaukee and start Pretty Beggar. I met somebody that he grew up with, and we were roommates for a number of years. And so since they were such good friends, Tim used to come to Minneapolis and just party and hang
It's a
out.
good party place.
Yeah.
I've
And-
partied there before a few times.
Yeah, it's a fun
In
spot,
college.
man. There's just
In the
so
winter.
many different little areas of stuff going on, and whatever kind of personality you got, there's something to
I love Minneapolis,
dig
man.
into. Yeah,
That's a great place.
yeah, and yeah. So my brother had one of his roommates had like this little shitty drum kit in their basement, which was one of those just concrete foundation, nothing in it, couple metal poles kind of basement, and he had
College basement, man.
yeah, so he had a drum kit up there, and it
yeah.
was just like pieced apart, like sitting under the stairwell. And like I had a guitar, and I knew it was there, or we went and partied there or something, and Tim was with me. And, you know, he wanted to jam out, so we set it up one day and just like
Had
had
you
a
picked
little
up a
jam.
guitar
and-
before?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have one growing up?
No. I got one when I was 18, and I just I don't know where it came from, but I had this stimulus like, oh, I wanted to learn.
Yeah.
And so I learned for like a month. I tried to learn Simple Man by Leonard Skinner. Yeah.
Oh man, you hear my voice there.
Yeah.
I can't do it. This is gonna be awful, man.
But at the time,
Simple.
I actually didn't know it was a Leonard Skinner song, because I was going through more of a hard rock phase, and so I thought it was a Shinedown song because they did that cover of it.
Yeah.
It just got super famous. And so I learned that song, and I tried to sing it at the talent show. You know, that whole thing when you're in high school.
High
you
school
just wanna-
talent show.
Yeah.
I skipped out on those.
Dude, it went it was awful.
Oh, God.
So bad. And like all I remember, like I didn't know how to play guitar like at all, but also
Oh my God.
I broke a string on my guitar right before I went
Oh
out.
my God, no.
And when you only know one guitar and you barely know how to play, there's another guy there, this
Dude.
friend of mine.
Oh, did
He
you
played like a Blink-182 cover right
had a
after me, and I was
guitar?
like, "Hey, can I use your guitar?"
Did you use it?
Yeah,
Oh, thank God.
but you know, it just made me 1,000 times more nervous. Anyways, it was terrible. And I think my parents like videotaped it, and I remember this one moment of
Oof.
hearing back like 3 or 4 seconds and how pitchy it was, and I didn't know it on stage, right?
Yeah,
And
you
then
don't know.
listen back, and that few seconds scarred me for like I don't know how long, but
It's an
so I
important
played
lesson.
guitar for like a month, and then I didn't for like 4 or 5 years,
Oof, I could only
'Cause it-
imagine.
even though I still had the guitar. It was just too traumatic.
Yeah, but you didn't freeze though.
No,
No, you got through it.
got through it.
That's great.
Yeah. I was dating this girl at the time, and like I played the song, and then I came back and sat down. I was like sitting in front row with her, so I sat next to her, and like her reaction, you could tell like she was trying to be supportive, but it was just so terrible. So
I mean, that's
yeah.
the time to do it, man. Like
It's better to have
Yeah.
done it too.
yeah, well, you get it
Yeah,
over
no.
with. There's your first
Yeah.
show. There's your first performance.
Everybody's got to go through that.
Yeah, everybody's got to do it. I asked about the freezing because I froze one time in a piano recital when I was a kid,
Yeah.
in front of a bunch of elderly people. They were all probably like zonked out,
Yeah.
you know, in a home, and they didn't give a crap. But I was just like frozen.
Mhm.
But I think that reminds me of my little sister. My little sister Nora, she sang a song, and it's like there was some high schooler doing the sound. It was the awful sound. It's just like for her, like they had a backing track. She was singing over. It was so loud. They had no monitors. You know, nothing. She sings like by herself. It's never, and it was just it was so bad. But like, yeah, I asked her. I was like, "How did you feel?" She goes, "I don't remember it."
Yeah.
You just like
That's how it goes.
Yeah,
man.
you just your mind shuts it off. You just shut off, and it's adrenaline. But you get through it, you know, and you get through it, and like that's what makes it
Build upon it.
Yeah, then you
Yeah.
know, I remember those a few times. Like when I was in high school, I didn't do a talent show, but I went to a couple open mics. And I was just thinking about this the other day because on 88.9 there was it's still this artist in Milwaukee. He's a great rapper called Genesis Renji, and he was at this open mic because he was in high school. I went to those. I was like, high school's stupid, you know, like all these people. Although there ended up being some pretty good, you know, talent in the grades below me and grade above me, but there wasn't really many musicians in my grade. There were a couple really talented people, but they weren't like there was a DJ Hitman at the time, Ian Carroll, taught me how to scratch and gave me told me to get those turntables and stuff.
Yeah.
But I went to this thing and I had like was working on a song, didn't even finish it, never even like rehearsed it or played it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll play that song.
Yeah.
And I went to the open mic and I tried playing it, and I had like one verse that I remembered and like part of a melody.
Yeah.
And I went up there trying to perform it, and it was just brutal. I was up there and I realized everything came crashing down.
Yeah.
I was like, this song isn't even, what am I even doing? Like why did I decide to do this?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Well, I was just talking to somebody the other day how it's good to have like survivable failures,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
so that nothing goes catastrophically wrong, like maybe some embarrassment or nerves or whatever, but ultimately the consequences are nil.
That's why open mics are great,
Yeah.
because it's very low risk,
Yeah.
especially when you're young. If you're young, please just play as much as you can, like as good as, because no one's gonna, like, you go out and you try to be like I don't know, maybe not, especially when you're young. It doesn't matter, however old you are, but like,
Yeah,
just get it done with. When you get, the earlier you do it, the better, I think, you know. But it's never too late, of course. Like if you're 40, 45, if you're 60 and you want to do it, go ahead. You'll always get better. But so then that's what Tim and you started jamming in College House. That sounds exactly like my college. We had a house, and there was a drum set down there, and we'd play, and we just drink a bunch of alcohol and just jam all night, and who knows where we was going. And then people would come in and start improving stuff, and everyone would just be messing around and just having a good time. None of us even knew what the hell was going on. It was all terrible.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And I'm like the only one who's a musician, but like I barely can play the guitar. You know, like I can write songs and use my computer to do it, but when it comes to like performing with other people, I was a total noob. I'd never played with other people.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that was like. And especially other people who aren't musicians. So it was like so then So what? So then did you come to Milwaukee then? Because you're based in is Pretty Beggar based in Milwaukee or
Yeah.
okay?
Well, just real quick on the, you know, getting drunk playing something doesn't sound good. You don't care, whatever. You're
Yeah,
just getting the jams out.
yeah, just jamming it out.
We threw a birthday party for me when I was like 20. I think it was my 21st, and I was just roommating with like 5 guys or something like that. And that old drum kit that used to be in my brother's house, we had this space in the basement, so I bought it for like $100 or something like that from this guy because he wasn't using it. And I was like, yeah, I just wanted to buy it. I didn't know how to play that either. But there's this guy up the street that could play some guitar. He used to be a roommate of mine. So I was like, yeah, maybe we could do something or whatever. So we throw this party, and I was so fixated on the possibilities of like music or doing something creative that so I had this guitar, and over years and years, maybe I collected like a 2-chord progression that I liked, and I just like playing back and forth or whatever. And you probably know how it is when you can hear an entire song in just like one moment or like a couple chords, and you can kind of hear the potential, but nobody else can, like if you played it for them and didn't sort of elaborate. And so it was like midnight hits, and my buddy brings down some shots to the basement or whatever. And so the basement is packed, and everybody has like a shot or does a drink together for the birthday celebration as midnight turns over. And then my roommate was like, what do you, like, it's your birthday, you just turned 21, like, what do you want to do right now? Anything, just let us know. And the drum kit was right there. I was like, oh, I want to play this jam, because this friend of mine was there, and he knew how to drum, and I knew 2 guitar chords. And I was like, yeah, it's just all I want to do. And so I didn't know how to play, so you get super focused and eyes closed and whatever. So I just play these 2 chords back and forth, and my buddy's grooving on the drums, and he's super good or whatever. And looking back now, obviously, it just sounded like shit. And so
2 chords,
I get
tiny.
super into it, and I get my eyes closed. And by the time I looked up after like 2 minutes of jamming, the basement was just empty. Everybody's like, fuck this, I'm out of here.
It's like, we didn't come here for a jam.
Yeah.
Amateur jam. That's funny.
But yeah, eventually.
That's a good way to clear out a basement in colleges, to have some motherfuckers that barely know how to play their instruments play. Seriously. Especially when they're drunk.
Yeah. That was bad.
Yeah, that would be we would always jam after everyone left.
Yeah.
Then it was just the people who were drunk enough
2
to
to
not
4
care.
a.m.
Yeah, 2 to 4, exactly. 2 to 4 a.m. Or every once in a while we'd have a buddy come through who knew how to play something, and we could play. It would just turn into me playing my songs, the riffs that I knew, because I didn't know how to play any other songs. Mm-hmm. And or there's always the drummer, our buddy who's a drummer who comes through and he starts playing the drums, and he hits the thing so hard. It's like totally unnecessary. I'm sure you've seen drummers like that.
Yeah.
It's just like, why?
I've seen a mix over the years.
What? Yeah. Why are you drumming so hard? Like, why?
Yeah.
Maybe it's probably catharsis, maybe, or like,
oh yeah,
they're just really got it. Like a lot of, I don't know. I could imagine it's fun, right? To just really whack at the stuff. Then my roommate's his drums down there.
Drumming's definitely one of the most therapeutic.
Yeah.
Instruments to play.
He's on it, and then my roommate whose drums they were, he's up there. He's like, oh, he's hitting this drum so hard. I'm like, well, you should go talk to him. He's like, will you talk to him?
Split my snare.
I'm like, you talk to him, man. I'm not. Like, they're your drums, man. Like,
oh
well. It's important. Those are important growth moments. Stuff.
Yeah.
How do you really?
Well,
how do you really know if you like it until you do it, and then you do it, and you had your eyes closed, and you're like, yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone left, but you still were vibing, right?
It's so hard.
Yeah, just fucking vibing.
Yeah.
2 chords is all you need, man. Some of the best songs in the world are 2 chords, or just modulate between 2 chords.
Yeah, and honestly, if you don't,
I have a lot of songs
tell people
just
they
2
don't
chords.
No, it's like if you're creating a good sonical environment for somebody to listen to, it doesn't matter what it is.
All those James Brown songs, a lot of those Motown records.
Yeah,
it's a lot of those it's about the groove and the textures and the timbre and the arrangement. It's not about the progression.
Well, and like 100,000 classic blues songs are 3 chords. So.
Right, 3 chord, yeah. All rock and roll built on 3 chords,
Yeah.
like the Ramones,
Mm-hmm.
or 1-4-5. Even a lot of jazz is 3 chords,
Yeah.
2 or 3 chords, and once you get past that, then you start getting into some more complicated things, and it's harder to jam. That's why 2 and 3 chord songs are great to jam on.
Yeah.
But it's even tough to do 3 chords sometimes. Even when musicians are really talented, you have to be very clear what the chords are.
Yeah.
Everyone has to know or something. At least I've been in the situations where it's like, oh yeah. Usually people just call out a key, like A minor, okay, and we just go to A minor, and then everyone's messing around with the 1-4-5 anyway, because it's those are all the harmonic fundamentals,
Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, so then you went to.
Well, yeah, so the open mic thing, I like to encourage people too, because I was working as an engineer for like a few years, and so at this point I'm like 25, and I was just hating it and like kind of getting depressed, so I needed an outlet, and so that's when I started writing. And I had this friend who was also interested in writing, so he came over for one session to actually create something. And that was kind of the stimulus, and I was living alone at the time, so I had some extra time to, and I just broke up with somebody, so you have some more time to just like focus on something, or you're sort of left up to your own devices to entertain your brain or keep yourself mentally healthy or challenged or whatever it is. So I wrote a couple songs that weren't nothing, but there was an open mic down the street, and do you know the band Frogleg from Minneapolis? We brought them out here a couple times.
Yeah, I've heard
the name.
And
They're kind of my home base when I go back there. That like I'll go to their shows, or I'll play shows with them, or sit in with them, or whatever it is. Just that's kind of my music base back in Minneapolis. But it's because they would go to this open mic because they lived in that same town, but they were also these incredible musicians, so they ran it like an open jam. And
like a house band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went over there to play a couple songs, and it takes so much just to create something and go show it to people, that even though they were these expert musicians and I was struggling to hold any pitches or even get through this song that was my own, it was like the first song I've ever written, so it's like all over the place.
Yeah.
That I think most musicians, as long as they're good-natured people in general, they realize how hard it is to get to that point. So they were so supportive, even though I was fighting through these couple songs. Yeah, that I think that's what really kickstarted me.
Get some actual support from some people.
And there was one guy there. His name's Will Efforts. He did this thing that I noticed that I do to this day. It's like whatever the skill level is, or however satisfied you are about somebody's performance when you play on a bill with them, or whatever. If you think they're good, if you think you think they're bad, or you can recognize that they're just starting out, or incredibly good, whatever it is. He did this thing, like he found these couple moments in one of those first songs that I had written. Like the whole thing's kind of a mess, but maybe there was just like a quick melody that he was really like, oh, that's totally worthwhile. So he would pick out these little moments, and then after my set, he would mention those specific things, or like, what was that lyric you said that was cool, or what was that melody right there? Oh, I love that part, or whatever. So I noticed that I do that to this day, and it may have been spurred on by him, is that I like to pay attention to people's performances, find something that I really honestly love, and go very specific. And then if you mention something very specific to an artist who has created it, it creates a nice relationship.
Oh, yeah. That's a great point, man. That's absolutely a really great point, because a lot of times people don't know how to critically give feedback and stuff. And sometimes you're looking for, it's really tough, especially when you're first starting out, or if you're you're not very confident in your stuff, or you might have an emotional attachment to it. Some people are very protective of it, and they might hear things the wrong way. There's a lot of emotion invested into, if you're an artist, into things. And some people more than others. Like, I don't ever really I'm confident in my things usually at this point.
Yeah.
But that's a great point and I've tried to do that as much as I can too. And what you're talking about is like positive reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't talk about all the things that it's pretty, like especially if they're new. It's like, how much can you really give them critical feedback, right?
Yeah.
Like for example, my sister just sent me something today about something she was working on, and uh, like the melody, the progressions, it's like her even the clarity of her voice and stuff. She's a brilliant singer. Just like, oh, so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing I say, and then okay, and then I go, and your guitar is a lot of tune.
Yeah.
Like, but so you can give both and stuff like, but it's not that's the guitar being out of tune is something you can fix. That's it's an easy solution.
Yeah.
Right. But where it's like when someone comes and it's really tough and you're trying to think of the things to, like you could really deconstruct it and destroy their whole ego, about it, or just, but like you said, it's that one thing. I try to do that too. You focus on the really good things that like you said. I think what's most important is honestly believe that you honestly believe.
Yeah, it can't be.
Yeah, you can't bullshit.
Something you made up or just some.
Oh yeah, I like your
very generic compliment kind of a thing.
I mean, most people appreciate a generic compliment anyway. I mean, it's better to give a generic compliment than like a destructive criticism. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like I think be like, I love those tunes you're working on. They sound great. Like that's still going to be encouraging.
Yeah.
But that's another level. Your buddies sound like great dudes where they're able to see the potential and see that, because everyone's been there, and any musician who's going to put their nose up and be like, this is like, maybe they're not at your level of mastery, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's lesser, and that's tough. Because I've talked to a lot of musicians, and there's a lot of there's been some good conversations I've had with musicians where there's been issues with laughing at other people that are, maybe they're pitchy, or maybe they're working on their things, or people laugh at open micers, or people laugh at things, and
oh shit,
and I've been in situations too where I'm like laughing in open mics, but out of like happiness and stuff, and about like not about
the joy of the
it's
experience.
about the antics and the whole experience. Yeah, like, but I'm not
like human nature of people needing to come out and
it's almost
share.
it's in a kind of, but when you take a video and then you laugh afterwards and show everybody and laugh at how bad someone is.
Yeah.
That's when I starts getting into a territory where it's like, okay, well now you're just like, why are you punching down?
Yeah.
Right? Like punching down.
Yeah.
Like it's much like you could have,
and cultivating negativity. Like,
exactly. And you're making that your priority is to focus on negativity, and like it shows very loudly your insecurity,
Sure.
And that's how I feel. But it exposes the people that I talk to about that, and people laugh, and it's like, okay, it's the she bangs, so guy, what's that guy's name? But he got a fucking record deal, man. So like that, so like there's one thing, like I just posted this video, I don't even know where it's from. It was fucking bizarre on Facebook, of this girl singing and this guy in this crazy outfit, like air drumming with two mallets, and he had one cymbal.
You posted this today.
Yeah, did you see that?
Yeah, I saw this.
Like, well, the first thing I did, I started laughing at it, but my reaction wasn't,
eventually,
wow,
you said
this is awful.
Like they're having fun or something.
Yeah, like I looked at it, and through the whole thing, I was like,
especially the guy with the mallets.
Yeah, the joy on their faces, and what it is like, and like it's going back to that point where you're saying about when you were in that basement, right, and you're with your friends, and you don't care, and you're having fun. That is so important, and for people to like, that is how you're talking. This is your origin, right? Like, that's your origin. I'm same with me. Like, I listen to some of those stuff when I was a kid, and that shit's hilarious, and sometimes in a good and a bad way, Like, but that's the origin. If you don't start there, then where are you gonna go? You don't just pop out of the womb with perfect pitch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's important to, especially if you're a musician and you consider yourself to have some level of mastery, in any sense, or just an artist in general. Very important to support people and not to put them down, because, I mean, put them down if they deserve to be put down. There's a lot of people that think they're better than they are, and or maybe they
try to assert their authority over you.
Yeah, or
they're the better.
Yes, I'm sure there's there are instances where you can be very critical and it's righteous, but if you're punching down, you know what I mean? Like if you're punching down and it's clear that someone, you know, is working on their craft.
Yeah.
I think you're, like you said, cultivating negativity. That's a great way to put it. And that you're ultimately putting that negativity in your life.
Yeah.
And you're bringing that into yourself. And that's what you're shaping
Yeah.
your world around that negative thought. And yeah, that's why open mics are great, is, you know, and the true heroes in the world are those motherfuckers that run those open mics.
Yeah.
Because the patience and the support that those people bring to the fabric of the music in this country and all across the world
Yeah.
is invaluable. And
like you said, a low stakes environment that can help
Exactly.
people just get started.
that's what it's for.
Yeah.
That's what it's for. You know, if someone, it starts to get into weird territory where it's like, why is this person headlining this big festival or this big event, and it's clear they don't have a mastery of something, or it's like,
Yeah.
and then it starts to get questioned, you know, like, well, okay, well, what is that? And then there's a lot of, you know, nothing's black and white, right? You know,
Yeah.
but it's a case by case basis. But
Like, you know, if again with the you know, whatever skill level somebody's at, if you can find something to be positive about when you're talking to them about their
exactly,
performance, is like the most important thing is if somebody's up there doing it, they clearly have felt this real visceral connection to this art form, and it's something that they want to do. So everything that can be learned, you know, singing, instrumentation, how to tune your guitar, whatever it is. So, you know, if you can just cultivate some of that positive reinforcement or just that positivity, that, you know, they can get better.
exactly.
You know, it's all about just putting in the time and hard work. So if you can be part of encouraging somebody to continue, regardless of whether or not you saw the potential, that
Right.
all art will get better.
Think about
You never know what somebody's capable of.
your girlfriend at the time, or your buddies that, you know, and that, like, they could have said, she could have been like, that was terrible. And imagine that
destroyed
it could,
me.
yeah, it would have, like, it could have destroyed you, and then you might have never wanted to ever pick up a guitar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it might have been that much more scarring.
Yeah.
That
And
I
then
couldn't come back 5 years
you
later.
go into that open mic environment, and they're just like, yeah, why don't you just go sit down, buddy?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or like that's the difference between just, you know, between, you never know what someone's going to become. You know, seeing the progress of people, I could only imagine that's probably like, that's probably why these open mic, you know, curators do this. And it's like why they see it. Like there's the like legendary open mic curator in Milwaukee is Jim Linneman and Linneman's, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that,
hell yeah.
like that dude has seen people.
We did poetry nights too.
Yeah, the longest running poetry night.
Yeah.
Thing, like he that was a place where I was able to go and mess up so many times. Even
Nice.
even like recently, I went and I was working on some new songs. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to open mic, and then turned out that night was like some of the best folk singers in town just decided to show up at Linneman's, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna still work on my stuff. It's still open mic. And I
Yeah.
did it, and talk about tuning a guitar. I was switching from open G to open C, and I had no idea. I had only done it like once or twice, and I was frozen there. I'm being like, okay, we're gonna. I'm like, does
Yeah.
anybody know? Like jokingly, I'm like, okay, right. Like, this is gonna go up to C. Okay, the pedal says.
Were you playing an acoustic
Yeah,
too,
it's
so
like-
everybody can hear you tuning?
Like the pedals on the floor says that's a G, but the tuner in the guitar is saying it's A. It's like, I don't know what this is. It's freaking out.
Panic.
Meanwhile, there's like some of the best, you know, players. But then it's like, you know, like you said, go up and, you know, I brought up and he goes, oh man, I've been there a million times. You know, he's like, I love those tunes. You're like, you know, you said something positive, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing is like, I mean, it would have been shitty if, you know, I'm sure I would have felt a little bad if he said something like that. But like, who would do that? Like, if you're really going on open mic and you're going there to shit on people, you're some special kind of insecure sociopath or something. You know what I mean? And yeah, big ups to open mic curators and open jam curators, because
Yeah.
that's where it all starts with everything. And yeah, that's super important. Super important. All the first time for everything in every aspect of things. So like, so then you came Milwaukee, started playing here. After all that, you graduated, you worked for a little bit, and then you just were fed up and just said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna DIY some albums." Or you no, you got your last album was all DIY, right?
Yeah. So
That was just all you, right? Mostly.
Yeah. No, 100%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah. So
I remember when you were doing that. That was what, you're like releasing a song a week or
song a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying to spread out my promo and stuff
That
to
was smart.
make it go longer. Yeah. I'm so
Seemed exhausting.
overwhelmed by, well, like I'm so late to the game. It was like mid-20s. I'm like, oh, I can't do this engineering thing. I'm going to try to play some music. And, I'm 10, 15 years behind everybody else I know out there. So I felt this pressure to really hurry up. And then I was getting so depressed, just like having to continue working this day job that I hated, that I wanted to leave like ASAP.
Yeah.
So the reason I started doing everything DIY is I was like, oh, okay, well, I can skip maybe like 2 years of working a day job if instead of spending money to go into the studio and like hire a producer and send stuff out to get mastered and print vinyls and like all that stuff, I can make the finances work way more in my favor if I just figure out how to do it. And I was like already recording my demos in Logic Pro just to get the ideas down and using it as a writing tool. And, with how prevalent YouTube is and all the education you can get on there,
Oh, yeah,
I was like,
absolutely.
One thing about engineering is it teaches you to be confident in your own capability in problem solving. So even though I didn't know how to make a record or produce my own song or do my own recordings or anything, given all the education and problems that you solve previously, I had this confidence that I don't know how to do it, but I know that I can do it if I just put some work in. So I was like, this is how it's going to work. If I can do my own record, and then if I can do the solo tour like I'm doing now with like the live looping thing, and it's like live looping, you can hold down a big sound in a big room for some big pay, but you do it all yourself.
Yeah.
So that
Big payoff.
yeah, so it was just a big effort to swing finances in my own favor and go DIY. And then suddenly you realize all the other benefits, like we said, like creative control, or, people have started hiring me on now to mix their songs or do records for them.
Yeah, you got those skills now.
Yeah. So, and then that personal nature of having to book my own tours, so I'm directly talking to people.
Right.
When I first started sending emails out, I started pretending like I was my own manager with like a fake name.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that. Like, people have even suggested that to me.
Yeah, I don't do it.
Yeah, I've never done it, but
people react seemingly so much better to like the comfort of knowing that they're speaking directly to you. And then especially like you said, setting up house shows and that kind of thing. It's like DIY,
they don't want to talk to
the
managers.
personal
DIY
nature.
people don't like you know what I mean? They almost would be adverse to that.
Yeah,
I would imagine, because then it's like, don't bring the man into here. You know,
yeah.
Like
exactly.
Like, that's not what this is about. Like, so when did you go on your first solo tour? Was this pretty recently?
It'd been 2
years.
2 springs ago.
Okay.
So, what are we in 2019? Yeah. So spring 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. Little Toyota Corolla. Took some seats out, put in a mattress.
Hey, that's what I'm about to do, man. Toyota Camry.
That's what's up. But yeah, it was kind of
Corolla's
torturous.
a little bigger, isn't it?
Figure out how to live out of that thing. But this is from 2001, so you know how cars get bigger and bigger.
Right.
This is
okay.
Yeah, it was this tiny little thing. I'm like sleeping in like a Walmart parking lot and the sun beating in the springtime, and
that's what I was going to ask you about sleeping, because I'm there's going to be some spots where I'm not so sure, and the Walmart parking lots just find one, just go there.
No, they're hit and miss, because some of them they outlaw it, and some of them they allow it. It's all over the place, so you gotta.
Is it like a? So then, where do you go now when you do it?
Well, now I'm super incognito because my van it doesn't have any windows anywhere in the back, so it's just the front cabin.
Right.
And it
Right.
looks like a work fan because I bought it from somebody who was using it as like an electrician or something. And so it's got these roof racks on top. It kind of makes it look like it's
Yeah.
for carrying ladders and a work van or whatever. So,
But what
now I
about
just
with your
park in.
Corolla? What were you doing then?
Oh, that was all Walmart or
Is there like a website
Public.
you can go to like
yeah,
look
yeah. All the information's available. You just got to search for
Search
it.
it.
So,
Well, this thing about house shows too is like usually houses have couches.
yeah, yeah. So definitely,
I'm hopefully.
yeah, rely
hopefully
on
these
some people or just
people are
shout
gonna
it out
live.
on stage like you need a place to stay. There was a lot of that too. That
Yeah.
I could go refresh like sleeping in a house. But
Yeah, you never know. Some fancy ass houses out there too.
yeah,
Sometimes that's better than staying at a hotel.
yeah. I played the
Or
show in
motel.
God damn, it's this brewery in Winona, Minnesota, with this band called the Early Eyes.
Okay.
There's some young up and comers, super good from Minneapolis, and they were like, we were just talking tour, and I was trying to get some advice because they just live on the road nonstop and about to get a record deal. They're doing a record in Los Angeles right now, so they've been at it,
Nice.
full experience, and they're like, yeah, we rely on people as much as we can because we tour 5 guys out of a van, so it's not like we can
that's-
crash out in the van.
No.
So they really ask for places to stay and try to rely on people. And they're like, we've had some of the best living we've ever had on the road because people with these nice homes invite us in and feed us and put us in these nice beds and like all this stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So, yeah, you can be surprised about how good a living you can get.
Yeah, that was it was interesting. Last tour, I did a little tour in around Joshua Tree last year and went to Coachella Valley. My friend Lance, and amazing guitarist and singer, blew me away. He's like, "Can I play a song for you?" I was like, "Sure." I'm like, let's hear it. And he played this thing, and it just, holy crap. And he's just been grinding his stuff around, and we stayed at his place, and I just kept saying thank you, and eventually he was just like, dude, enough with the thank yous. Like, I get it, but like, people have done this for me, so like, I'm just doing it back. And so when you're in a position then to do it, you do it.
Yeah.
But stop saying thank you to me and start focusing on how to get your shit done and how you can help other people too.
Exactly.
And I was like, oh, whoa.
Yeah.
That really that really connected with me. I was like, okay. Like, thanks. I mean,
Yeah.
like, thanks
Well,
for
once I got in the
I was like, I'm from the Midwest, man. I just say thank you.
yeah. Well, I realized too when I used to work this engineering job and I wasn't really happy myself, I used to be a lot more selfish. But then once I found something that I was connected to and excited about, suddenly I cultivated this day-to-day environment with my own positive mentality. So when I go out to shows, I'm already in this mindset where I'm like, yeah, whatever I can do to help, just like let me know. Like I'll come and I'll run sound, or I'll help your band set up, or I'll sit in, or help promo, or bake bread, or
Or all of it.
yeah. And
Shit, man.
so because what I realized is it was easier to
Karma,
do
man.
that because of the positive mentality, but then I realized very quickly that I kind of get this like rush from it, or just like, doing something selfless for somebody else makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And everything.
That's good business too.
Yeah. And so I realized that I just
It's
loved
a win-win.
that nature. And then I just heard Joe Rogan talking on his podcast the other day about how, or he was talking with Artie Lang, and they were talking about the AA mentality. And like AA started because these guys couldn't stop drinking, but they realized that just talking to each other could help them stay off it. And they would go around to these hospitals and like talking to these people that were in critical units because of their alcoholism. And they would just talk to them. And people would ask them kind of what they were doing. It's like just talking to these people. It seems like we're helping them, but really it's helping us to sort of have this generosity or do this favor. It's like that feeling that you get back from selfless deeds like that. It's enough to sort of cultivate this healthier, positive
Yeah, it's almost
mentality.
it's almost selflessness is selfishness. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
like the
it's exactly what Joe said too. And I
Oh,
tell people
I
that it's like
I didn't see that. I saw that there was.
it's like
I didn't
being
see that
selfless,
episode.
but it's also selfish. It's weird.
I forget what that's called because I remember doing a paper on that in college. Using the Mother Teresa, talking about the argument was, oh, Mother Teresa. Well, I've heard some other stories about Mother Teresa that she wasn't as great as people say.
I don't
But
know
let's
about
just
her.
say she was, right? Like she is this great person who's selfless and
'Kay.
all that stuff. But you think about, oh, why did she help all these people? It's like, well, because she's just a really great, or made her feel, it was good. But it's and the argument is like, but this doesn't discredit any of it, right? It's just like it's coming from her trying to fulfill her own spiritual understanding of who she can become. Like
Mhm.
she wants to fulfill her selfishly, which isn't sometimes being selfish isn't bad, right? Like to a degree, like
Yeah,
she was
it's a
trying
fine motivation. It just depends on
right
the result,
exactly
the outflow.
right. Like if you're being selfish with yeah. So it's a now I can't remember. It's been a while, but that was there was that argument to it of
Yeah.
like, well, she was just being selfish, but that doesn't that's not
That causes you to do good work.
right.
Yeah.
If it's a selfishness, selfish
Selfish
selflessness, selflessness is, but that's interesting.
Yeah.
So then, how many times have you toured? Then you said two
It's
solos,
really been twice.
two solo times,
Yeah,
or
so I did one spring out of the Corolla, and it was such tough living because it was such a small space, and in between gigs, I'd have to live straight out of it. That basically you'd fatigue, and eventually I'd have to get an Airbnb and like refresh.
right?
And so I'd spend money there and that kind of thing. But now with the van, it's such comfy sleeping, with just a good mattress in there, and I have some more space and more privacy, and I can park wherever and that kind of thing, that I can refresh day to day and just keep going and going. So it was, one short tour, big learning experience, and then building from there.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So this would
This
be
December,
number 2. Yeah.
Camry. And it's interesting that you're saying cultivation a lot.
Cultivation.
Yeah, because it just announced today called the new album. It's Cultivation,
Yeah.
and that's what it's all about.
I like it. And I saw the like nature and flower puns, garden puns, and like the fundraising levels and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to keep
like
it. You got to keep it going. But the cultivate, and that's what it is. It's like I'm trying to get a van too. Like that's the goal.
Yeah.
Is to be able to get something a little bigger. And it's not just for solo touring, but it's just like I can't fit musicians in my Camry, man. Like I can fit one maybe.
Yep.
I could probably fit one. If it was like a small kit, a drum kit maybe, and real good Tetris, and taking out those back seats.
Yep.
Like probably could make two people happen, but you're sure shit ain't sleeping in there.
Yeah.
But I got some house shows and luckily I've been kind of booking my stuff around where I know people for this one. There's a couple places I'm going to be though that I don't know, or like I do know people, but they're like 45 minutes to an hour away, which isn't the worst, but I'm just kind of going right into it, and
Dude, it's fun.
I'm just going right
Figuring it out is fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun little experiment, like you got to get it'll be, like that first time you go up to an open mic and, you do it. It's not, some of it's not going to be pretty, part of it will be, you learn a lot. Part of it will be great. I'm sure the whole thing's going to be great, but the logistical aspects of things is the like where you're going to sleep, the money, are you going to make money? Will you not? Who knows? That's not the goal for this, right? It's just to get the feet wet and hit the ground running and trying to understand.
You learn so much so quick that it's good to have, little test runs.
Yeah, I'm sure. And that's kind of the beauty and joy of it all is like just kind of letting go and trusting trust in the fact that it's just gonna be all good. And worst case scenario, you just fucking drive back home.
Yeah.
Like it's not like you're stuck in a different country where you don't speak the language, and
Yeah.
and you lost your passport. Like there's ways to get back. There's
Well, and every bad experience is a fun story to look back on.
yeah,
It's
right.
like when you make it through it. So it's all good in the end, you know. And
You got to have those bad experiences. You got to have them.
yeah, well, you can learn from it, and then
Yeah.
you can look back with a positive head eventually. So it all sort of circles back to good things. And it's a little bit cliched now, probably ever since that Jim Carrey movie came out, that Yes Man
Oh yes, man. Yeah.
movie or whatever. But that's the mentality I try to have when I'm touring around, is just say yes to whatever. Because people come up after shows like, hey, come party with us, or do this or do that, or do you want to stay at our place?
Yeah.
Keep saying yes, and you're constantly surprised about all the cool shit that you get into.
Yeah, I mean, even gigs around here like that same app, like someone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go to this place after, and I'm like, I kind of just go home, and I don't know, like this is weird, I'm gonna be tired, whatever. It's like, even if I go for an hour, what's the worst, like,
Yeah,
and then you go, and all of a sudden, these people have that much more connection with you. You have that much more people that you know in that place.
yeah,
You have that much more experience with, like new people that you can learn from,
yep,
and people that might be actually, be interested in following your music, right? So it's like, why wouldn't you? I mean,
yeah.
of course, you gotta trust your gut.
On paper, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you gotta trust your gut. If it's someone's like, giving you some weird vibes or something,
Yeah.
probably best to just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna, I've got somewhere to, be, I gotta drive, I got to hit the road,
yeah,
but yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and yeah, I mean, it's been inspiring to watching you going on those, and taking those steps, and doing that DIY album, going on those tours, gathering all that data, fucking grinding it, making it work, making it happen, and making some sweet music, like that. I mean, that's the name of the game,
It's nice to hear, man, because you've been at it so long and you're so talented that it's like sort of seeing where you're at and how much I'm impressed by you and how much I like your music, that I can still contribute something unique to your learning experience or something that you could admire, that kind of thing. It's just a good example of how no matter who you are, you can always have something unique to contribute, or no matter how
absolutely.
long you've been a musician or this other thing, there's always something you can contribute. So you should never be intimidated by what you don't know, or that person who's a better guitar player than you or whatever, And so this is a good example between the two of us, just
you're right.
different,
Because everyone has strengths and weaknesses, and everyone has something to learn. Even people, like I was saying before, about punching down and stuff. Like, you get in that mindset of being like, oh, I know, if I've been at it this long, I know how to write a song.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like the that's closing you're closed minded, right? And
Yeah.
like, if you're not open minded, then you're not gonna learn.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know, there, like I said, strengths and weaknesses. I've been at it so long, but I've been at making music so long.
Yeah.
I've not been at the music business so long.
Yeah.
I'm probably behind you on that in some things, and especially with the traveling around. So it's like everyone's in there, and that's the kind of the interesting thing about when I entered into the music, like full time, being like, all right, music, this is what's happening. Like, get to see and get to hear from so many people that there's no right way or wrong way. And I hear that, and when people would say that to me, I'd be like, it's just some cliche thing. Like, there's got to be some real, there are some effective, strategies that have been proven,
Yeah.
like touring is a thing. Like, you should tour,
Yeah.
but like the point being, like, everyone has the thing. Everyone's is got legs up on other people in certain aspects, and everyone's this diverse array of so many elements to being a musician.
Yep.
And there's so many ways you can capitalize on it, and there's so many ways you can there's so many avenues to bring you to one thing, like this podcast, like that coming together to talk about music. That's one aspect to help build the music. That's one aspect to help understand about music, to help understand the human experience,
Yeah.
which then brings life into music. Like whether I'm talking to a musician, or I'm talking to a neuroscientist, or I'm talking to whoever, that matters to the music, and it matters to the people who might be interested in listening to this podcast, or it matters to people who want to of all walks of life. Well, I forget what the quote is, but it's like everything relates to everything. What is it like? It's the concept of like when you understand one thing and you start seeing it everywhere else, like you get to see that everything really is the same thing, just in expressions of different, expressed differently, and so it's amazing that in the art world and musicians in particular, because that's kind of where our heads are in. There's so many different, in Milwaukee, just seeing all these people and the different approaches they take and the different strengths that they have and things. And it's like, oh, that person, I'm never going to sing like them. It's like, yeah, because you're not them, but you can sing like you.
Learn what you can.
You can sing like you, and you can do what you do. And some people, I think people really struggle trying to find that, or like getting over that concept of like, well, what am I then? What am I trying to do? Like sometimes you can't.
You're just trying to be you, man.
You don't know until you do it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to do it.
This is a great point, because people nowadays will compliment my voice a lot after shows, and it's mind blowing to me every time, because I know where I started out, and I never had any lessons or whatever. I just figured it out, and so my theory on the whole thing is, they like my voice not because it's particularly great. Like some people might like my voice and tell me to like, hey, go on The Voice or go on American Idol or whatever. And I'm like, I
don't think you understand how those work.
Yeah, what they maybe don't understand is, my theory is why, like, even when I'm pitchy or I just can't like belt it out and do all these crazy things that these people have been singing for years and years and been in all these choirs and things. I can't do that kind of thing. But I think the reason they react that way to my voice is because I learned to sing by writing songs. So I just started trying to write songs, and I had to sing. So I didn't know what I was doing. I was just improvising. So basically everything that came out and I eventually stuck with to create these songs, it all came from my personality, because it couldn't have come from being a trained jazz musician of 12 years. So you're stuck in like these jazz progressions or doing these like crazy movements through songs.
This is how you sing. This is how you breathe your head. This is how you do it.
Yeah.
Like you have to have this type of tone. You need to get your breathe from this. If you do this, it's like,
yeah. So people are like, oh, I love your songs. I'm like, well, I didn't start that long ago. Is all I had to go off of. I was like, play these open mics with these incredible musicians, and I knew I couldn't play like them, but I knew I could tell a good story.
Yeah.
So that's all I had. And that's why my music these days is so lyric and storyteller focused, despite whatever upbeat, downbeat, folksy, bluesy, hip hop, whatever kind of vibe it's in. It's all lyric and story focused, because that's the only thing I knew how to do. It's like everybody can tell a story. Living life as a human being is just collecting stories in a unique perspective. So I tell people that to kind of encourage them. And then it's like, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing, so my voice sort of developed itself with reference to my own personality and style of songwriting. So I go play a show for somebody, and my theory is the reason they like my voice so much in these certain scenarios is because my voice is so custom tailored to the music that's underneath it.
Well, because it's honest.
Yeah. And so it all goes together so well by default, because of the way I came up as a songwriter, that they like my voice, not necessarily because it's that great, or they think it's great because it's just framed in the right way. And then a lot of times I tell people, like, that's the whole basis of punk music, is like a style that was developed because there's a bunch of people who didn't know how to play instruments, but they just wanted to. So they just simple songs and just tons of energy, and don't worry about pitches. Just,
Yeah.
create this energy and tell
about the-
this
yeah.
story and get your personality out. And
It's about the honesty in it, and that's
Yeah.
what you're saying. You're saying it's custom tailored to your personality. It's your personality. It's like who you are. That's what makes the song. Like that's an emotional honesty, right? In the song, in songwriting, and people pick up on that so easily. Like, and I think that's something that's underappreciated, and it's completely disregarded in a lot of like industry, the music industry, and it's like for how long, I've been paying attention to the music industry, and then all of a sudden Adele comes along, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, what is this? It's amazing!"
yeah,
And she's amazing, but it's like it's because it was such a stark contrast to what was happening in the music at that time when she came around. You know what I mean? It was like in pop music, like it was like, oh, someone with that honest integrity of her. Of course, she's an amazing singer too, but like,
yeah.
that was like a
You can hear
caveat.
her,
She was like an
her honest
outlier. Yeah,
perspective
she was like an
of-
outlier. It's like, oh my god, like there's all these pop singers that are that are tailored and they're groomed, and they're shaped.
Yep.
Right? Like in the industry words of like shaping and stripping you of your
Sure.
identity.
Round out the edges.
Yeah,
make
strip
it
you
generic.
of your identity.
Yeah.
Put it in there so we can control it, and and Adele she doesn't have that. Like she is who she is, right? At least in her song, at least that first album when she came out, and that was huge and everything, and even her second album. But like although I don't know, I shouldn't. Those are the only ones I heard. So, but I don't know. That's one example that came to my head of like in the industry, people being honest, or like Justin Vernon and Bon Iver and stuff going to the Grammys and being like, "This is all a sham," like, and everyone's like, "What?" It's I think people don't really understand and I think it's because it's in the industry. They don't have a spiritual focus of the music.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a pursuit for the, like, you're approaching this stuff and you're talking about giving, right? Like, because that's what brings you joy, spreading your music and spreading your ideas and your personality and your honest opinion in these things. Like, this is a spiritual pursuit that you have dedicated yourself to. And when you don't have that, you can still connect with people, for sure. And you can bring people value and joy and stuff. But when it gets diluted and diluted and diluted, and when there's 30 people working on one song to just pump it out, then everyone, and it loses some of its, of course, loses its edge, and I would imagine it loses its honesty too, because it's all of a sudden now it's like we were just talking before this about Star Wars, right? Like about all these new Star Wars movies, about how.
Like, our audience is so big and there's so much money riding on it. They just have to round off all those edges.
Yeah,
like
they
you
just
said,
and
stick with the format.
But it doesn't even seem like they're sticking with what worked before. It's like you'd think that they would just pick another director to do another trilogy, or you know what I mean. But they don't. They just go one after the other. New writers, new directors, new vision every time. And it was very disappointing to me. Like, I mean, I liked the first. Of course, I like the original, but I like I have fond memories of episode 1, because I was a kid and I saw it in theaters. And I thought it was fucking cool. I thought Jar Jar Binks was hilarious, but I was a kid. I thought Darth Maul was the coolest. Darth Maul plus pod racing. Come on, that's all you need.
Yeah.
But like, I know people criticize it, but apparently there was a lot of things that were happening then too. Like, there was so much pressure on it to do it, and George Lucas and all these people were rewriting or rechanging, and people have. I don't know if you've ever seen I saw this once online, and some guy went and rewrote kind of the story about how it should have been, and it was like mind blowing about how Jar Jar Binks was actually a Sith Lord.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Have you heard that?
Yeah, it was like just before the new ones came out. My whole family was into the Star Wars.
Blew my mind.
It blew my mind, and I sent it to everybody, and so we had this like family email thread of like.
It's so. I was like, that. It's
totally redeeming.
Epic. That would have been epic. It wouldn't have been the most one of the, and I mean, who knows what was going on with George Lucas sold it all off now to Disney, and Disney.
But the word is on that one, right? That he he was intimidated about how poorly the movies were going, and so they hurried up and changed the third one to be more generic or something like that. But
Right, and when you have these characters that you introduce that are supposed to, like Darth Maul was like, he could have been so much better. He could have been so much more. He was just like a
Yeah.
scary guy that came
he
and
was
he
just
died.
there to get cut in half.
Yeah, and when they do stuff like that, where it's kind of like, it seems very short sighted. You know what I mean? It seems short sighted where it's like the story arc of what I understand about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey and things like that. It's like you kind of lose those inherent um, the inherent formulas that people are accustomed to of like a good story or
Yeah.
and so the point of what I'm saying is like why I brought up Star Wars was like those movies now like they get diluted. You have all these people. You have a focus groups like, oh, I don't know, this might offend these people, or like,
Yeah.
oh, we have to cut that out, or you have 5 different writers and editors and directors and all these things doing every single movie. And I mean, I'm no Star Wars expert, and maybe people are probably like very upset that I'm saying these things, but I think the majority of people understand that like you can still appreciate the movies. I still went and saw them, and they're like
Yeah, they're
fun, but fun is different than impact, like really truly impactful piece of art.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these pop songs and music now are fun,
Mm-hmm.
but bubblegum is fun until it loses its flavor and you spit it out. You know what I mean? So
Wait, is that why it's called bubblegum pop?
it is, yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I thought it was just because like the word bubblegum is like, oh, bright and pink and fun.
I
But
mean,
I like that
heard
meaning much better.
I think that's what the meaning is.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
because you just chew it and it loses its flavor.
Yeah.
And you're done with it. And then it's just like, oh, this is and then you forget about it. You spit it out.
Yeah.
Put like how much of that is get pumped out? Oh, boom, boom, boom. It's disposable music, right?
Yeah.
It's like, are you going to be how many of those songs really will last the test of time? And some of them will, I'm sure. There's some real bangers, right, that are like, okay, that's a classic song.
Yeah.
And that will live in the culture for
Yep.
sure. But there's so many that aren't in these like top 40 charts that are like they're there and then they're gone and then
Yep.
everyone forgets. But
Mhm.
I mean, I don't know, maybe that's just the life cycle of music now too. The charts are they change so fast now. Everything's changing and although Old Town Road was pretty mind blowing how that topped the charts for so long.
Yeah, it started off like a TikTok thing or something.
Yeah,
I've actually never heard the song.
it's an okay song. Like the song is fine, but like what it became is so much bigger than itself that
Yeah.
it became so much more of a cultural moment as opposed to just the song.
Yeah.
Like
So that's nice.
and then there was all this it was like the perfect formula for it. Like, and apparently this it was sampled from some I forget what it was. Most like half of the royalties go to a different band because it was sampled guitar.
Yeah, I heard that.
And it was some like beat maker in Netherlands or Germany or something
Yeah.
that I forget. Lil Nas X bought a beat for $50 or something.
Yeah.
And then it went on TikTok and turned into a meme, and then it got bigger, and then all of a sudden it became controversial, and then
Yeah.
you know,
Country versus hip hop.
and like what is it? And then you get this whole, and that crossover is something that has been, there's been some weird things in that realm of the these crossover. And again, it's just the industry. People being like, "That's not country. That's nothing," and
Yeah,
like,
trying
trying
to
to
define
categorize,
things.
trying to. It's like if people
It's
like,
everything
this
is infinitely variable and different. So thus there could never actually really be a defining line
Right.
between genres. Everything
especially
blends over
nowadays.
itself.
And that's the tough thing for me. A lot of people like, and and you have that similar aspects in some ways. Of like, yeah, like you were saying, like, is this going to be a folk song, or is this going to be a hip hop song, or is this going to be rock, or is this going to be blues? Like, is it going to be all? It's like, well, or is it all of them, or is it none of them, or does it matter?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it matters maybe in the anthropology of it, right? Like where does it come from? Where are the roots of these things? You can, I'm all for categorization because you need that to like make sense of things. Yeah, like I said,
Yeah. Tell history
anthropologically.
and describe things. And
But in my job, like as a musician, I feel like since I started making music, is not to make genre specific music. It's not like I make this music, right?
yeah.
It's honesty, like I was saying. It's about does this music, do I connect with it?
Yeah.
Does this tell my story? And if it tells something that I connect with, then chances are someone else will connect with too. That's like my
Oh,
litmus
yeah.
test.
Dude, this is what I tell people all the time. I was like, my whole uh like standards process for writing a song and knowing that it's done or it's good or this is something that people want to listen to is I don't stop writing a song or a part within a song until it honestly impresses myself.
Right. Like, oh damn.
Which, first of all, that's such a good feeling. It's like an addictive
Yeah, it is.
thing.
It's very
to
addicting.
do
Yeah.
something super cool that it goes out, comes back, and impresses your own self.
Where the fuck did that come from?
Yeah. And then, so I don't stop till I get to those points because I'm like, hey, if I'm impressing myself with this music and honestly enjoying the melodies and like listening to it and that kind of thing, there's such a shared experience between humans that you guarantee that there's going to be a subset of other people that will enjoy that as well. But if you stop short because you don't want to work as hard and you end up with something generic and you can feel it, people will also feel that too.
Definitely.
So, like you
that's
said, so that's my litmus test. Is if you impress yourself, you're going to impress other people because there's always
People can
that
feel it.
pie piece of people out there that share.
I think people
where
truly
you're at.
can feel it, and I think people when you live it in the mindset of demographics and numbers and analytics and all these things, like
You
It's-
remove
it-
the humanity.
yeah, it's important to think, if you're a businessman and you want to, and you need to do that, like
Yeah.
it's important to have those, but that's not going
You
to
got to do
be
both.
right. That's not going
Balance.
to be what the method, the method of the music is different than the method of the business, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's something that I've been struggling with. And last year, Spectacular was very much kind of like that. Like, okay, I'm embracing business a little bit, and then it was kind of a little scary and kind of things. But I've been running with it. And so this one, that's why it's called cultivation. Is like, actually last year I was ready for cultivation. I wanted it to be cultivation, but then I put it up for a vote.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, I want people. What do the people want?
Yeah.
And they wanted Spectacular. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm gonna make a Spectacular album.
Yeah.
And so, but this one is like, all right, no, now I'm ready to dig back in there and to remind myself of like what this is all about.
Yeah.
About what I can make an album by myself. Again, just like I've done a bunch more times in the past. That doesn't mean just because I'm approaching things more of a business standpoint doesn't mean that I'm going to lose any of that. And it's a challenge because wearing so many different hats, and you have to wear different perspectives, and you have to put on so many different types of glasses to see
Yeah.
to work in the industry. But that's the beauty of the DIY, is because nowadays you don't, and that's what part of why I'm a Creative Commons musician too, is because it gives me this protective layer of like, this is free music. This is music that's open. It's royalty free. It's like I don't have that type of ownership at its core, right? Like, it kind of gives me a little protective layer to like continue to be DIY and can continue to do that and not, I don't know. I've had some exposure and run-ins with some more industry-minded folk in Milwaukee, which is not even close to what the fuck the industry's like in LA or New York or anything. Like, this is fucking
Yeah.
cookies compared to cake. Like this not even close, but it's like almost it's like a good insight, and it's almost like worse in some cases because it's like these are people who want to be in the industry, so they're like parroting these things, and it's
Yeah.
almost sadder because it's like, no, it's Milwaukee. Like, you don't have to do that here. Like,
Yeah.
we can shape our future in this city because it's such a growing and new, like, and it's not new, but like there are new cultural movements here that are, that are being pushed, that people are being a part of, that like it's up to the people here to decide what we are.
Mm-hmm.
And when people are getting whispers from LA and New York and getting money from there to like repeat what those people are doing, it kind of restricts our growth here, I think, in Milwaukee. Because we're not going to be LA. And I don't think we should. Like it's not going to happen. Like, and so why pretend like this is a different model here. Like,
Yeah.
and we get it's an exciting opportunity that not a lot of cities get to have. Like, I think, and if people here in Milwaukee are able to really rally around that type of mentality, as opposed to the mentality of, the status quo of the industry, of the 2/3 of the music industry that is owned by like 3 companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's a small group of people that have all this power stratified all the way at the top. And I don't know, it's a little disheartening in some ways to see, certain people in it's a little scary, and it's a little, but then you turn around and you go, to see, some other performances and see people that are really making some moves, and you're like, okay,
Well,
you know,
I think everybody's
everyone's trying to
everybody.
hustle and everyone's trying to make their shit happen, and like,
Well, and everybody has different like end goals too. You
Right.
know, like I try to see the positive side of even some of that generic bubblegum pop or whatever. If there's somebody there that they wanted to be known and travel the world and be
Right.
famous and perform songs, they figured out how to get there. And
yeah,
so
don't hate the player, hate the game.
good on them. And
Yeah.
so I think it's good for, I think the reason we ended up DIY, especially me, is I took a look at all that. This is very early on writing a couple songs. You're like, oh, I gotta get these songs known and become famous and party like a rock star or whatever. Yeah. And but after I did the music for a while, I realized, like, wait a minute. Once I settled into who I was as a person and I just figured out what the world was about, it's like I got to reassess my goals here. So then suddenly my new goal became, well, I just got to make a living doing this so I can do it day to day.
Exactly.
And then suddenly there was all this pressure off because I realized that if I reformatted some of my strategies, like doing the solo show and doing my own records and that kind of thing, I could very quickly swing the finances in my favor.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly that goal was not only attainable, but attainable, relatively, almost immediately, like in the next year or so, or if I just switch some things around and quit my job and that kind of thing.
It's not that hard to learn how to use Reaper, you know what I mean? Or learn how to use any free, Reaper's free, and it's as capable of any other as Pro Tools and Logic and all that stuff.
Same with GarageBand.
Yeah, you can even freaking use GarageBand and record shit. Like, that's what I think. Like, people who are like, oh, I have all these songs, but I need to go to the studio. It's like, no, you don't. You really don't. But
Well,
maybe
back to the honesty thing.
Yeah.
Just write an honest song, and there's some
just need a couple
huge
mics.
songs over the last couple decades, or like classic rock songs and stuff that people still listen to. And if you really look at the recording quality, you're like, oh yeah, well, there's all these things you could have done better or whatever. It sounds like shit, but if you tell a good story and an honest story, suddenly it cuts through all that and people don't even notice the quality of it.
No, it's crazy to me because like people, some of the worst. Like, man, when I was a kid, I didn't even care about noises in the background or anything, or there's all this nasty double. I like put 2 compressors on it and a limiter on top of that. It's just like, but like people will be like, this is my favorite song. Be like, okay, it doesn't, maybe at least, there's some people that aren't like they're not repulsed by it, but you're your worst critic. But like, I don't know. I think about someone like the Black Keys, where they were all DIY, and then they became the biggest rock stars in the world. And their last album they did DIY again.
Mm-hmm.
They went all full circle, and they were able to, because they were DIY, and they got some success because of their honesty in their music,
Yep.
and because of who they are. Just two of them doing it and recording in their basement with like an 8-track or whatever it was that they were doing, or
Yeah.
I don't know what it was they were using. I don't think it was 8-track, but they're doing it themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those old albums sound amazing.
So
you know
good.
what I mean? And I didn't know that growing up. I just found that out recently when I saw them on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Like how when I was a kid, and same with Jack White, of the White Stripes. He's doing it all himself.
Yeah.
And he's doing, and so like those were the people that I looked up to and was like, oh, I just assumed like most people did that.
Yeah.
Like that. I heard of studios and stuff too, but like that doesn't seem attainable. That seems so. I remember emailing a couple people when I was in high school, being like, "Hey, I'd like to like work in your studio or something." Like no one replied. I would message all these people. No one replied. No one would do anything. And so then I just go on Google. How do I record a song?
Exactly.
You want to record a song? Have you ever searched that? Anyone listening, if you have a bunch of music you're listening to, or that you're writing, and that you want to record it, have you ever gone on Google and searched that? How do I record a song? Or, or DIY recording, or any of these things. Like, you can learn. Like you said, you have some engineering backgrounds. You do have some exposure to, using programs and the concepts of physics and like these things that some education, but you didn't have this recording education, right?
Mm-hmm.
You learned it by yourself. Same with me.
Yeah,
I learned it
as like a means to an end.
Yeah, I learned it myself.
Yeah,
and it, like you said, you can go on YouTube and there's a million people that walk it through. They'll fucking hold your hand basically, and you can pause. I remember so many times I'd go pause, and I'd say, pause the video. 2 seconds later, I'd be like, pause again, and be like, okay, what did they just say?
Yeah, take you an hour to get through a 10-minute video.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
but it's 1 hour,
you learn,
and then you learn it, and then
it's
you
like
don't
an
have
intense absorption experience.
then you don't have to do it again, because then you figure it out, and now then you do it over and over and over and over and over. And you do it for over 10 years, and then it's second nature. When I record things, it's like I'm able now to be in the flow state so fast when I'm well greased and oiled. When I've been doing it. Recording and stopping and edit and arranging is all like almost second nature now.
Yep.
Like I can get something done in 4 hours if I want to, if it's really flowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's
man.
like all of a sudden there's a song, and major elements of the song, the hook and the verse and the main sections are done. Now all I got to do is embellishments and transitions and mixing, and maybe throw some other extra instruments in there, and maybe I can, maybe put a bridge in there later or whatever. Like, like there, you can do these things so much easier than people give it credit. But it does take time to learn it, and it does.
Yeah, well, it's the secret to any creative pursuit.
Exactly.
Just put the work in.
Put the hours. That's what I wonder. Like, you want to be good at something, how many hours have you spent on it?
Yeah.
So people say, people say, oh, I'll never have talent like you have. I'll never have talent like no, I just became obsessed with this since I was a kid. And so as soon as I learned how to press that fucking record button on sound recorder in Windows 98, where I could only record 30 seconds at a time, and I'd have to stop and press record again and stop. Like, as soon as I discovered that, with this the monitor had a microphone in it. I had this old, big, fat CRT monitor that I got from my aunt and uncle. They gave us this terrible computer, but the monitor had a microphone on it. And I remember like learning that was a microphone and plugging it into the computer, and then learning that as soon as that happened, I became addicted. And then I figured out later, then, through a friend who was like, oh, check out Fruity Loops, and I learned Fruity Loops, how to like compose on a grid, track MIDI and stuff. Like the learn that, and all of a sudden you can put those two things together, and boom, all of a sudden I'm writing songs, and I became addicted. And how many hours? I don't know how many hours I spent. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But like day and day and day and day and day and day, I threw all the video games away, and I didn't throw them away. but I was obsessed with video games, play that, and I like had my identity with that, and it was a good way to connect with friends and stuff. But as soon as I made that first song, where it's like you said that I impressed myself
Yeah.
with what I
That's
was,
the tipping point.
then I was like, this is actually badass.
Yeah.
I am feeling this,
Yeah.
And I'd listen to it
amazing.
over and over and over and over and over and over and over, and I'd listen, and it would never get old. It would never get old. I would be so impressed with it, and then I ran with it.
Well, it's nice to have like
know.
a creative pursuit to help drive you through the grind of some of that learning
Right.
stuff.
And it's tough sometimes, for sure. You bang your head against the wall, but
Yeah.
just go back again tomorrow.
Yeah. Seriously. And there's this this quote that I rail against quite often. It's the if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. It's just
Yeah.
it's this popular thing that people like to say.
What's your definition of work?
Yeah, and I'm like, I rail against it because it's like that's not what's going on. It's really that if you love what you do, you're lucky to have found that or worked towards finding it, because the joy and positivity and all the things that you get from loving what you're doing allows you to push through the hard work, push through the writer's block, push through
Monotony.
the music business bullshit or the fatigue of touring or whatever it is. So it's a ton of work. It's just, if you find that thing, it allows you to work through all that to higher tiers and more positive realms of being an artist.
Yeah. No, I think I would agree. I always thought that quote was strange. The one thing about work, and I guess it depends on your definition of work, because, like, well, what's the physical definition of work?
See, again, it's like defining
remember what that is?
genres and stuff.
Work
Everything's so...
Work is energy.
Oh,
What
like
is
the
it?
physics?
Yeah, do you remember? It's been a while. I didn't pay very much attention in
Force
circuits.
times distance? Force over
Force.
a distance is work.
Force over distance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like flux, right? It's kind of like that too. But the one interesting thing about work that I always try to approach, once I learned Taoism, when I really understood like bits of Taoism, and one of the the yin yang.
Not
you
really.
Know what the yin yang is.
All I know of it is just like being balance of all things or something, or balance of duality.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the yin yang is the main symbol that people attribute to Taoism. So like that's the Taoist philosophy, and it's actually on the South Korean flag and all this stuff. Like it's a huge symbol that represents balance, right, between yin and yang. Those are the two. It's like positive and negative energies, and then within the negative is a spark of positive, and within the whatever.
Yep.
But anyway, the concept in Taoism that really blew my mind when I heard it was this idea called Wu Wei. Maybe that's how it's pronounced. I don't know, but Wu Wei is the concept of effortless work. Effortless work, and so that's the translation, at least, that I heard. And so it's not necessarily, and so the Wu Wei is essentially like the idea of the Tao is the way, and the way is essentially everything. It's the natural harmonious state of reality.
Yeah.
And the more you try and find out what it is, the less you actually understand. It's like grasping onto water, trying to grab a hold of water, or something.
Okay.
Like the more you struggle, the more it's gonna slip away. But it's like that concept of like if you find your resonance with your Wu Wei, or your Wei is WEI shit. No, and it's that idea as if you find, it's kind of similar to that phrase that you said, that you never work a day in your life. It's not like you're not
Find
working.
something to make the work feel effortless.
Exactly. It's that you're doing work, but you got a smile on your face, and it doesn't feel monotonous. It doesn't feel laborious. It doesn't feel soul sucking.
Dude, one of the best examples of that when I'm on tour is I'll play a show till 2 a.m. and I'll be loading out an entire band's worth of gear by myself into this van at 3 o'clock in the morning and having to find some place to stay. But I just got a smile on my face, or like I don't feel
That's awesome.
any negativity towards the obligation of needing to pack up and do everything myself. Whereas there's jobs that I used to work, I would have all this harbored negativity for having to be there at a certain time and like do these tasks and whatever. But wow, honestly, it describes it so perfectly because it's a lot of work, but it just feels effortless. It feels like I'm on autopilot.
Yeah.
And I just don't mind it at all.
No.
Plus, then you get these good ass people that'll like help you
Like, hey, you
carry your gear out and stuff.
Oh, sure.
And that's a great feeling too, just the generosity of people. But yeah, that's a great way to describe it, the effortless work.
Yeah, because I mean, and that's what the Taoism is all about. That it's all about contradicting and paradoxes. Like life is a paradox. So the way you want to look at everything is that it's exactly what you don't think it is. Or like it exactly. It's those concepts of the more you look, the less you'll find. And the more everything is a paradox. It's. And so the more you let go of trying to really try to granularly understand these things and have control and all these things is like the more you let go and just be more in the moment and be more true to who you are as a person, the easier life becomes. And the more, like, that's what you're saying, like the struggle. I felt that too. Working in software. I love software, the concepts of it and stuff, but like just in working in industry, like where I worked for a little bit, like I know tons of people that would be grateful to be working there, or that love it, and they're like happy that they're happy with the stability and the work that they do, and that they have a good job that they like and stuff. But I've just never been that guy. I've never been the one to settle with something that is. And maybe it's just because it's not spiritually my vocation, and maybe it is for some other people, but it's not for me. And so,
well, the grateful is a good word, because thinking back, I could never honestly feel grateful for having those jobs, because it
feels like a chore that it feels like homework. Yeah. That's how I felt like when I was a kid, like all this homework bullshit, and it's like I know this is bullshit, and I know that it's bullshit. So why are we here? Why are we doing this? This doesn't seem right.
It's a pretty mature perspective for a young kid. I don't think I figured,
dude, I knew it, man.
That any of it was bullshit until a long time after.
I mean, I started to make sense of it when I was in high school, but I knew it as a kid. Yeah. I could sense it in the teachers. I could sense that they didn't want to be there. They didn't, not always, but for certain things. Because I would ask them, I would be like, why? How does this value? What does this have to do with? Me, and they couldn't answer my questions. I would always ask them these questions. They would never answer it. Yeah. I would never be satisfied with anything they'd say. And I could hear and see in their explanations that even they knew that they had no good
Have you ever
answer.
heard a teacher say, "That's just how it's done"?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just how it is.
Just the worst.
Especially, I grew up in a Catholic school, so they were talking about from things at a spiritual level, right? Like we're talking about, in religion class, we're talking about the spirit that moves everything, right? Yet when we're asking about the basic fundamentals of the tenets of the theology behind this great spiritual thing, and they'd be like, it is
the Bible says.
Yeah, it's like, wait, what? And it's not Buddhist.
Can we all be independent thinkers just for a minute? Yeah,
I'm like, I don't know, maybe it, I think maybe it comes from my mom or something. She kind of grew up that, like, her dad grew up his parents were gypsies and stuff, and so maybe they had a more independent mindset. And that's what, when I was in high school, then I discovered Walt Whitman and and Emerson, and it was like, all right, game over.
Man, you had a very mature childhood.
I knew this. Like, as soon as I read some Whitman, I was like, okay, I knew it. But these are Americans. Like, these are motherfuckers that were around not too long ago, man.
Yeah.
And from not that far away. and they figured it out too. So these aren't radical ideas. Like these are, well, they're radical in a way, but they're not radical in the sense of like in a pejorative sense. Like they're not some far out, like, oh, that's just a utopian vision.
Yeah, unattainable.
It's like, no,
idea.
these are great American heroes
Yeah.
that people celebrate, yet they don't actually listen to what they're, I mean, even Buddha said, like, don't listen to anything in a religious text. Like those are the people I trust, right? Like if someone's peddling some shit to you and they're telling you, like, I just went to this church yesterday morning. My older sister, she's not like super religious, but she goes around to different churches and she likes to like bounce from place to place, and she gets value from seeing different communities and seeing how they worship, and she likes that.
Yep.
She's not necessarily a strict Christian, but she likes a lot of the, of course she likes Jesus' teachings and stuff. Most people do, right? Even if you're not Christian, you can appreciate that. But the level of, oh man, it was just brutal right away. I didn't realize how much heavy metal is in Christian rock music. There was like a rock band, but like the heavy metal, in terms of its the form, like the different ways. It felt like U2, like a lot of U2, like heavy metal type thing, not like death metal, but like all those, like tons of pedals and tons of just like, it's like, wow, this is so crazy. Like that there's this like traditionally, I don't know. The thing that got me at this place was, it was just so, it seemed like it was really just preying on people's lowest common denominators of things. Like it was smart in the way that they were running it, and smart in the ways of like repeating the right things to the people to make sure that they understood like what that they needed to pay attention to. And then they played this video of this guy who was talking about how all his medical bills were like accidentally, they met like something happened in the accounting department of the insurance company, and all the medical bills and he's just so grateful that he prayed with his wife, to help. And I was just like, are they really saying this right now? Like, believe in this and your medical bills will be taken care of. And they were talking about
Have you heard of the prosperity gospel?
It must be.
It's like these people that go around teaching that it's like, so they run an organization that relies on donations. They encourage you to donate, but they teach this gospel that says donating to the church is sowing seeds with God. And so it's like the more seeds that you sow, the more it will be returned back to you. But they're just scamming.
That's exactly kind of the vibes that I got this place. It was like some lady went up there and she's like, everyone pull out your thing. Like there was I thought they were handing out bulletins, right? Like, here's what's going to happen today. Like, this is here's the readings and here's this. It was like, no, it was all just, here's an envelope for us to get your information. They're like, we swear we don't sell this or anything. I was like, if you have to say that, then I don't know. Like that was the main focus. It was like, to pick up your sheet, sign your things, tell us, like, join this community, but they were, it wasn't like overtly offensive. Well, to me it was a little bit, but like I could understand how people would like it. It seemed like it was, people, it's a way for people to build a community. That's not bad, right? There's good things to it, but it's not for me, because to me it was very clear that it felt like this. It felt like this out of, like, the preacher was way out of touch. And first of all, it was like video. It was a video screen of a preacher from somewhere else. So they pull up this thing and it was so it was a band that played at the beginning. They played for like 20, 25 minutes. Yeah. And then some lady who was like a volunteer coordinator came out and just was like, everyone pick up your sheets and sign your names and be a part of this. Yeah. So this sees a good word and all this stuff. And Jesus is king. Jesus is king. He's a kingdom, and you're a servant, and he's king, and you need a, I'm just like, damn, man.
Yeah. Well,
I thought this was America, bro. Like, we ain't got no kings here. I mean, but that's all Christians believe that, like, the kingdom of heaven and stuff and whatever. But I don't want to go too much on a tangent about Christianity.
It's funny that you mentioned that thing just there with the repetition of just saying things over and over. Is I just went to my first church service in long time because my nephew was getting baptized.
Sure.
And so it was just interesting to like be back in it and being observant.
And ask this question: do you reject Satan and all of his works? Depends on your definition.
Well, the thing that got me was, they had these big TV screens up that were telling you what to say. So it was like,
yeah, that's what they had this place too.
it was like the preacher would say this thing, and then the bold stuff you were supposed to say. So you would repeat back. So it was telling you exactly what to say, and it was just like repeating the same things over and over and over. And I didn't know any of these things, and I'm also kind of resistive to what's that?
You know what kind of church it was, or like what kind of
Lutheran.
Okay.
But so everything was pretty mild. But the thing that got to me was like how, first of all, it was like they were just saying the same thing over and over, and it's kind of that flowery religious language.
Right.
I don't even know how to describe it because I haven't been in that world in so long. But just kind of these generic statements about God and heaven, and like you said, renouncing the devil or whatever. But so through all of the sermon sections, preacher saying something and it's telling you exactly what to say, and everybody's repeating it in unison and with the songs and stuff. So it almost became this like hypnotic thing of, we're going to tell you exactly what to say so you can kind of turn your brain off and just repeat these things until they're like ingrained in you. So I'm sitting there just not saying any of it. I'm just sort of observing people and the screen, what it's saying and that kind of thing. And so whenever I tried to like say something, it puts you into this hypnotic mindset of, you don't have to think about anything. Just repeat what we're saying, and then it slowly like seeps into you. And so
it's effective. That's why I meant smart. Like, it's smart messaging. It's great. It's ways to get people on your on your message.
Yeah, but it felt like, because of that, it felt like you're sort of putting people in this hypnotic state to sort of dull in their free thinking and just follow what's being said. And my mom was there. She's kind of like me religiously. She appreciates the positive generosity things about like Jesus' teachings or whatever. And she likes the community of church. And she goes, "Oh, I like the music too." And so I was like, "Oh, that'll be cool. I'll see what the music is like." Oh my! I just thought it was so terrible.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
It's like all these abstract meters and measures and like weird melodies and all sorts of verses and measures that just don't resolve. And like, obviously I'm speaking from like a indie pop music perspective, but God, I just thought it was terrible.
Yeah, I joined my uncle's choir for in an Episcopalian church, but and so I go to that, and I'm not a practicing Christian, and I grew up in a Catholic environment, but I would never consider myself Catholic religiously, culturally. I have a lot of those things ingrained into me, but I like this because my uncle has great taste in music, and so he gets to choose. In an Episcopalian church, you can choose all sorts of types of music throughout all history. So it's like
nice.
It's songs from all across the world, all across history. So it's like fun and to sing these songs, and they're cool songs, and like
nice.
and it's
that's great.
You still have
ones I heard were anything but hip.
Yeah, I mean the hip, like this church I went in yesterday, it was like a hip church. There's a lot of young people there. There's a lot of everyone it was very casual. It was much more casual than any other church I've ever been to. Like there was no structure there was no like first reading, second reading thing. Like that's what I'm used to.
Yep.
And even Episcopalians have that. It's like, then there's communion. And the communion was just like, go dump a bread and some grape juice and eat it, which, apparently there's a lot of Reformed Christians that do that. Episcopalians are closer to Catholic ceremonies, it seems, at least this particular one. So it's comfortable to me because I know it, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about the tenets and the fundamentals of the canon of what makes a Christian is if you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, then you're a Christian. And if you don't, you're going to hell. Mostly, at least in the Catholics, that's definitely sure, definitely true. And I think all Christians, at least, that's one of the main things. And I remember when I was a kid, I went and talked to another uncle I had who studied theology, and he kind of had these like little theology, philosophy, fireside things when I was in high school with a couple of my friends. We'd go there and he'd kind of teach us these things. And it was really interesting because when we were talking about salvation and things, and I brought up Mahatma Gandhi as an example for salvation because I wanted to know like the limits of what the church teaches and like what are the limits of will bring you salvation or not. Like I was like, well, what if you never heard of Jesus? You're in the middle of the mountains in Asia or Australia or something, and you don't know, you've never even been exposed. And he's like, well, if you live a Christ-like life, you'll be judged like that, and you'll go to heaven.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, what have you?
Well, that's like that whole idea of, oh, how lucky you were born to the right
Oh yeah,
God, like Christianity
like,
versus
wow,
Islam.
that I remember. I think it was like Christopher Hitchens would always say that or something like. Isn't it strange how everyone's got the right religion and it just so happens to be the religions their parents taught them? Isn't that strange how that works?
Yeah.
You know? But I asked him, I'm like, well, what about Mahatma Gandhi? That dude went to Oxford, you know? Like he definitely knew about Jesus, but he chose to be a Hindu, you know, or I think he was a Hindu. Or he definitely wasn't Christian, let's say that.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, of course there's these stories that maybe he wasn't the best person, blah blah blah. But, you know, if you were to look at him like this character of Mahatma Gandhi, right, like this peaceful resistor, this people who brought freedom to help bring freedom to a whole culture and society and inspire the world through peace and through these concepts of, you know, meekness and all these things that are very Christ-like, right?
Yep.
Very removing all possessions, being like he's a straight up monk, you know, like at least in the image of what we understand of him. And I just remember to this day, man, like the words. He was just like, yeah, well, unfortunately, Gandhi went to hell. I was like, damn, dude.
Oh, my God.
I was like, really? He's like, yeah, I mean, if you don't accept him, then man, that's the name of the game. I'm like,
well, and for somebody to say it with such
like,
conviction,
yeah,
too,
you know, that's
like
what
he
it is.
just knows it because...
Yeah, he knows it, yeah. Well, I mean, he's speaking from, he was at least speaking from the position of the church.
Yeah.
I know that. Whether he believed it or not, I'm not so sure. I can't speak on his behalf, but that's what he was teaching, was the positions of the church. And then he's like, next week we'll talk about possessions. I was like, I think I'm done with this.
Oh well.
You know, animals don't go to heaven. You know, it's like people. I don't know. Oh, I don't believe in the original sin. Like I said, I read Emerson. You know, so like he wrote a whole essay on that about. He said the original sin is mumps on the soul, not like the concept of original sin. Like is like you have original sin is mumps for you. It's no believing in original sin. The believing in the concept is mumps on your soul. And that people who are focused on evil, those are the ones who bring evil into the world. Like you're saying, harboring these negative vibes and feelings about punching down, putting other people down.
Yeah.
When you're all you're focusing on is Satan and his works or sin and all this stuff. It's like, man, why you got to bring all this negative shit in here, man? You know, like
Yeah. Why do you have to motivate people out of fear?
Right. And then that's a big red flag too. It's like, I mean, I read history, man. Like I know that Catholic Church was a tool for the Roman Empire. You know, like everyone knows this. We were taught that. Like, yet we were taught it, and then we went to religion class the next hour to learn the same shit.
Yeah.
It's like all the terrible things that they did all throughout history. You know, for justifying things, and it's like, but now I mean things are different. You know, our generation is a little different. Like the people I talk to a lot of people, and they can, you know, it's just like I'm spiritual, but I'm not. I don't believe in organized religion.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of that. Like, all of us have been able to, well, first, it's been a little exposed, right? Especially the Catholic Church.
Yep.
A lot of this, when absolute power corrupts absolutely thing. I mean, what's happening at the Vatican, you know, the shit in the Vatican, even to this day, the disgustingness of the disgusting nature of the pedophilia and sex trafficking and all this stuff. Like, when you're infallible, when you are, like, the Pope is a God king, maybe he's a little less than he is now, but they're their own nation. They have their own laws.
Yeah.
Like, he is a God king, like, still. And maybe he's not as powerful as he used to be, but the concept's still there. And that's what, and I listen to a lot of Alan Watts too, and he talks about that, like, basilica means the house of kings. And, like, he brought up that point about, kingdoms and kings. And he's like, this is an authoritarian spiritual practice.
Yep.
That you are controlled. Your spirit is controlled by the Lord and the King. This is no different than monarchy. Like, this is it's at a spiritual level. It's just so much more clever now, and have so amorphous in all these different. And it's just fascinating to me, like, how people square those circles now in this day, when the people, especially in America, when people are like, we got rid of these kings, right? Like, we started this old nation, we got rid of kings,
the freest nation.
Yeah,
in the world.
But yet their spiritual nature is built on authoritarianism.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why there's a lot of issues, like the puritanical aspects. Things still exist, right? that predeterminism, or the Calvinists. Like, that's.
Well, if we can,
summer.
If I can make this big jump all the way back to music based on what we're talking about,
that'd be great.
It's like the
I want to get out of here.
the DIY nature of what we're doing. I think one of the reasons it's so rewarding is because you strip away, obligations of other people or industry execs, and you don't pay mind to, I have to look this way physically or do these things to get a record deal that, maybe you'll get caught up in or whatever. If you just strip all these things away, like if you stripped away the black and white nature of Catholicism or whatever, you strip away all these things, it's really, truly like living a very free life, So when you're talking about the juxtaposition of American freedom versus some sort of ideal that you're abiding by, sort of the contrast of that, again, you can kind of see that in sort of what we're doing. It's like, if you strip away expectations, or like me stripping away the expectation of like fame or notoriety and just saying, well, I just like it, so I want to do it day after day, so I just have to make enough money to do that. If you strip away some of these expectations, obligations, that kind of a thing, suddenly it's so freeing and rewarding.
You're living a spiritual vocation that you control, like that you are your own master. Like,
everything flows outwardly from yourself, as opposed to.
I think that's the part of the reason why there's all this, like why there is a rejection, is because I think partially because people are exposed to different ideas that aren't necessarily. That's the one thing that I always wondered about. Like, I just, as becoming a musician and like performing now, when I go to church and stuff, it's like I'm seeing it as a performance. Like, I kind of always did, and I thought about it, like back in the day, man. Like, they wear these badass outfits and they got this crazy fucking smelling incense that probably gets you fucking high, and you're just like, what the fuck is going? And you see these people on these high risers, and they in this insane building. They don't even know. Yeah, you don't even know, how do people even make this? I have no idea. Like, that's the best performance you're gonna see in your lifetime, man. Like, that's a killer show, right? Like, better than anything. Like, that's why I think these mega churches are crazy, because like you're in a stadium, like you're in epic performance. But like, now, if it's like a lame church with like a pastor who's half in it and doesn't really care, and it's some, when it's boring and the sermon is terrible, and it's like, this is just shitty performance art. Like, you could find you can get more spiritual awakening from going to a Hosier concert. You know what I mean? Like, and that's true. Like, I've been to a Hosier concert. It's what it feels like. Yeah, it's what it feels like.
Good ass show, man.
Great. not just that, but any concert like that, that's just one example. But like, man, it was a really interesting concept. I thought about that when in high school. I remember being like, I don't believe in this. I'm not going to church until my parents. And I'm like boycotted it. I'm like, I'm gonna exercise my right to boycott, and I'm not gonna go. And they're like, well, fine. If you're not going to church, then you're gonna be, then we're gonna take away your computer privileges. I'm like, all right, fine. Like, this is what I believe in, and that's what I'm sticking to.
Gotta stand up for your protest.
Yeah, like, and you're gonna tell me to like stand up what I believe in, but then when I do it, then you're gonna like punish me.
Press me. Yeah.
Yeah, like who's the, yeah, like where's your
Interesting.
yeah, like, and also you would take away my computer privileges. As soon as you got a problem with your computer, don't come asking me how to fix it.
There you go.
And I was just like,
find your leverage.
And then finally, my mom's like, all right, well, just do it for me, because I'm your mom and I love you. Like, just come, like, I'll be like, come on, Mom. Like, that's the only thing she's got on me.
Yeah.
Like, all right, fine. All right, no, I would for a little bit. It was like that, and then eventually got over it, and and then as I got older, talked to my parents and stuff, and it's like it was clear, and it made sense then in retrospect, like how I had why I had these ideas in my head. It was because I saw it in my parents. I saw whether they would say it or not. I could see that they didn't believe in it either.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I think that's what a lot of the cases of a lot of our generation is, that our parents would just do it because that's what they were told to do. It's like the boomer way, right? Like, it's like they didn't have to really, like, they weren't the greatest generation in the sense, or the science generation or whatever they're called. Like, they didn't fight in World War II. Some of them maybe fought in like Korea or Vietnam or whatever, but the big boomers, like the people after all that, post-war, they kind of reaped all these benefits, and they were able to kind of see things, then the 60s, a big spiritual awakening, and big, this big understanding of maybe there's a different way to look at things. And I remember writing a song about that in 2009 and called "A Mess These Days." It's like talking about hippies, like where are the hippies now? Like, follow the lives of the hippies. There's only a few of them that really kept that going, right? They all wear like, I said something about how they all wear a frown now. Like, they're all depressed, and they were fucking in Dilbert, like, it's like they were there, and then the Cold War happened, and everyone was fucking scared shitless, and then, they're just like, but they still knew, because they had this awakening, right? They still knew that this was all bullshit, and I'd grow up and, go and be like, and it was clear that, I talked to my dad or something recently when I was over in Ireland. I asked him one by one each sacrament in the Catholic Church. I was like, do you believe in this? Do you believe in it? And he's like, well, no, I mean, no one really believes in it. I was like, dude, like,
yeah,
well, you're not even a Catholic. Like, why are you pretending? But then at the end of the day, they were like, well, it's community. That's what we care about. We care about the community. We care about. So it's like, okay,
which is great. But you should take that time to self-reflect and really nail down what you value and what you believe,
Right, exactly.
Instead of just reading from the prompter,
right,
getting hypnotized.
Right, and exactly, and that's the whole transcendental American way, like the self-reliance, right? Thoreau, of self-reliance, and Walt Whitman talking about, and all these people talking about, most men walk around in quiet desperation. They're there. You can see it. You can see it in their eyes. You can see it.
Feel it.
They're just like desperate, and they don't want it, but they don't make those decisions. They don't take those risks, and sometimes for good reasons, sometimes for not.
Yep.
Like, I think about people when you got a family. If you were in that position, it's easy for me to judge, right? Like, it's easy for me to judge motherfuckers who decide to go do these things. I don't have a family to take care of. I don't have all these. I have different. I can't. I'm deeply in debt.
Yeah.
Like most millennials.
Yeah.
But like, I don't have those responsibilities. If I had children to take care of, I'd probably think twice about a 9 to 5. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I would take a hard look at a 9 to 5, especially when insurance is involved, when healthcare is involved, all that shit. It's like, they don't. It's a different mindset, So generations are like that. They change. Things get. I'd like to think things that get better and better and better, and trauma and things heal from generation to generation. And
it's interesting. My brother and I were separated by a year. We have very different lives. He's got 2 kids now. He was the one who just had a kid that had a baptism, and we're pretty connected because we're so close in age, growing up together, and so we have these great conversations sometimes. And So we were talking about that duality of his life versus mine, and he's things that he envies about my life, and I have things that I envy about his life, and that kind of thing. But as we discussed it, it's like, well, yeah, but we're different people, so eventually you find what's your priority.
Right.
You know, him was, you know, having a family, and
Right.
he's just the greatest dad ever. You could tell just how much he fucking loves it, and so it's like, even though he hates the day job that he's in right now, it's still cultivating this other thing. So
Right.
it's sort of like what we're talking
Exactly.
about with music is there's this end goal that you're driving to that you love, and you have this effortless work propulsion towards, and so you're okay putting up with the rest of it. And so ultimately his balance is he's okay
That's a good
putting
point.
up with it for this
Yeah.
this greater end game.
It's his children. Yeah.
Yeah.
And his family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No.
Plus,
that's-
looking in
yeah.
at other people's lives, it's like social media. You always see the good bits.
Oh yeah.
You don't see everything else that goes into it. So it's hard to have a really well-informed perspective while viewing somebody else's life, as opposed to getting to the nitty-gritty and figuring out how they got there or what they put up with. You know.
No, that's a great point, man. That's a very that's an interesting perspective then you must have, because yeah, one only separated by a year, and that you're close with, and yet you've kind of chosen the two different paths that I feel like I've met so many people that are like, these are huge. They're the people who choose that freelance hustle mindset of, you know, entrepreneurship through music or through art is a real struggle, but you can find all this value. But at the same time, you know, you have all these people. I have a lot of friends that have families, and that's a great point. I never thought about that 9 to 5 as that means to that end of like their priority is really in that family, and I never really I never really saw it framed like that.
Yeah. Everybody's just got a different balance. So just do right by yourself and try to stay mentally healthy and all that.
It's all about
it's all good.
balance. Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, we just passed the 2:14 mark, so we've been talking for about over 2 hours.
It's a long time. How long do they usually go? These podcasts?
Yeah, somewhere around there, like 1 hour 30 minutes to 2.5, whatever. It doesn't. It's all loose format, you know.
Yeah.
But
we do some promo. We got a show coming up this Friday.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's get to the promo. We got a show on Friday at the Lake Geneva
House of Music.
House of Music.
Yep.
Lake Geneva.
Hosted by the Wise Jennings, who they're
Yes.
one of the people I'm doing a record for them next week.
Oh wow!
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Don't fuck it up, dude.
It'll be my first full record, but
A
it was
full
actually,
record.
It's looking like maybe 6 songs they're trying to get to.
Well, they're a duo, so that should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that shouldn't be too. Well, you got 2 voices and
Yeah, it shouldn't
drums.
be too bad.
Drums is a lot, but
Yeah, but
Damn,
I
they're
also
good,
did
man.
this record with these songwriters from Chicago up in this like little cabin in northern Minnesota, just like maybe like a month ago, and so we brought up a session drummer, bassist, and engineer and producer guy, and just learned so much from that experience that I feel pretty
Great.
comfortable.
yeah,
So, and again, it's that mentality of I'm not sure I know how to do this, but I'm confident in my history of problem solving and
man.
figuring stuff out that I'll be able to do it.
I'm
And,
sure they're absolutely thrilled to be working with you, and I'm sure it's gonna be fucking awesome because those guys make some great music.
Yeah.
And
Well, and
they're
they're
awesome
psyched too,
people.
because them and I both had a similar experience with one of our records. Mine with my first record, and them, I think, with their last record, Spit the Bit. That it's like you maybe involved the wrong person, and it was hard to identify that, and so there's this removal of that honesty or that humanity or whatever that occurred because of just your lack of experience or knowledge or
Right.
whatever it is. And so, I'm excited and they're excited, I think, at similar levels because we're so invested in each other as people that, we're not going to quit till it sounds fucking killer. So
6 good songs. It's gonna take a while, but
yeah,
it'll
so
be
we'll
good.
see. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Friday. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I just talked to Pat. He's in, so we're gonna have a power duo going. So
Power duo?
yeah,
Hell yeah.
And
If you want, I can well, we'll see. I got to rehearse with those other guys this week. I was going to say I could sit in if you
Oh.
needed some filler
That'd be fun.
or something.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd bring Pat too, because there's a couple simple songs. I thought I'd have him up and just play some solos or
I'm
something.
sure he'd love it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he'd love it. So we got that, and then anyone who's interested in listening to your music can go to prettybeggar.com. It's in the description box.
Yeah, being that I do everything myself, like you've been at it longer, so you set up some of these systems and you're better at social media and that kind of thing. And website we don't always keep up with, but
well, it's got links to everything. That's why
stuff streams everywhere. So
basically,
basically,
search Pretty Beggar on Google.
Yeah, wherever you're at,
Yeah,
Pretty Beggar shows right up. If you search it in Google, I'm the only thing that shows up. So that's the easiest way to do it. But I mean, every app has its own search bar, you know?
Right.
So if you're in YouTube, it's got a search bar. If you're in Spotify, it's got a search bar. Just type in Pretty Beggar and we'll pop up.
Hell yeah.
Listen there.
Awesome, dude.
And should have another record. We'll see on the length coming out in springtime, about the same time as you. So another DIY, but it's always gets bigger and better. So it'll be fun.
Every year.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have a song coming out on that little 3-song EP with those songwriters that'll
cool.
come out at the end of January, probably January 31st, which is the last Friday.
You got a lot of good projects coming through the pipe.
Yeah, a couple more collaborations going, and I just mixed a song for Party Marty. You know him. He's got a little music video coming out and stuff. So.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, just you can follow along the social medias and stuff, and
Instagram,
try to
Twitter,
keep up my best.
Facebook.
Yeah. Everything's just at Pretty Beggar, so it's super easy.
That's so good.
Either just Google it or add it, and it's right there.
That's great.
It's one of the reasons I picked the name, is because there's all sorts of reasons, but when I got down to it, I finally did that last check of the Google search. Is there anything out there called this? And nope. So I don't have much notoriety at all, but I'll pop up at the top of your Google search.
When you have a band name that like your Instagram's different than your Facebook, and your Facebook's different than your Twitter, and they're all different handles, and it's man, I've been having trouble freaking with Facebook, man. They've been fucking up. Like I've been trying to search Mountains on the Moon, I cannot do, and it's crazy. This
tagging is all over the place. Sometimes you can do it.
I've been so good. It's been perfect for me forever, and then
I couldn't tag my own band today when I was trying to do promo because it just wouldn't come up.
All right, well, everyone search Pretty Beggar and complain to Facebook. They messaged me the other day, or they gave me like, we want to hear from you. Like, what do you think? Do you think Facebook cares about its users? Do you agree with that statement? And I'm just like, disagree.
Yeah.
Like, no, whatever. But anyway.
So the biggest thing you can do is contribute to any of these. Come see shows and stuff like that if you can. But I just tour out of a van, so I can kind of go anywhere. So I try to get everywhere. And if you want to see me in Texas, just hit me up. I'll come down there and play a show for you. But in order to keep this thing going, you know how it is with those passive income streams and stuff like that. So if you just listen to a song and you dig it, just share it with a friend or hit that Spotify follow.
Or buy it on Apple or Bandcamp. Those are always good. Buying things are nice.
Yeah, for sure.
Streaming is good, but buying is better.
Yep. And if you buy it, you get a higher quality download too. So.
Well, right on. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate
Thanks for having me, man. On. It's always good talking to you.
Yeah, likewise.
I love to pop over just for a conversation, but then when we can mic it up and put it on YouTube.
Yeah.
That's
and we
good
got
too.
video cameras and shit.
Heck yeah.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to, at that, we'll sign out. And
hopefully we'll see some of you on Friday. Lake Geneva, House of Music.
Yeah.
Pretty Beggar and Cullah, back-to-back. Music 7 to 10.
I'm glad you're saying because I didn't know any of this. All right.
Yep.
No. All right. See you guys later. Bye-bye now. Oops.